Gentlemen, the time being 7 o'clock, all the council meeting and policy committee meetings for the 3rd of April 2018. Through evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You will be required to vacate the buildings by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the buildings until the all clear has been given and the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist with any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. Part 1.1, I call for any apologies for absence.
An apology from Councillor Miletto.
Moved. Second it.
In favour?
Aye.
Thank you. 1.2 is live streaming and recording. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that when you speak at this council meeting that you ensure you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording will be made for administrative purposes and will be available to all councillors. Acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people, who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders both past and present of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who may be present. Declarations of interest. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflicts of interest in any matter for consideration at tonight's council meeting?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I will be declaring an interest in item 2.4 of the Planning and Development Policy Committee when we get that committee meeting due to a relationship with, a working relationship and friendship with one of the submitters on that matter and also a neighbouring owner of a neighbouring property. I consider it to be non-significant and non-pecuniary, but I will be leaving the...
Thanks, Councillor Nugent.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to declare an interest on the same item in the item 2.4. I'm the chairman of OCTEC and development are actually associated with that organisation.
On 2.4, I just checked with the General Manager. I'm on the board of OCTEC. Relationship there between our General Manager, part of the application, so I'll declare a non-pecuniary, non-significant conflict of interest in item 2.4. Okay. There are no late items or mayoral minutes. I apologise for my voice. I'm just about lost it, which a lot of people would say is a good thing. Fortunately, I've got a dose of the flu, I think. We adjourn the meeting now for the conduct of the open forum, and we have a number of speakers tonight. Just doing them in the order that they're given to me, so I haven't juggled them around. So first we'll have Mauro Domenico, and he's talking on the Molong Road development. Yep. Well, I can't really. I mean, if I give you the option of doing that, we'll have everyone doing the same thing. I think it's the fairest way. You've probably got my luck where yours come out first and it's usually for the third prize.
Again, not much of a speaker, so okay, well, I actually live right next door to the development on Molong Road, so I'm probably the most affected by the development. A couple of points there. The vapor problem that we have with service stations there. They did say they retrieve 97% of the recovery of vapor, but it doesn't actually include the when people come in and fill up their cars. And there's a lot of fuel going in there and coming out, sort of thing. So you know, that is a big issue for the vapor problem. The deadline when I first found out, I didn't actually get a letter or anything initially for this plan. I was actually told by my next door neighbour, then chased it up. I went to another address. I was supposed to go to another address, and I didn't actually even receive there. So I was very, very late in putting my submission in. So I couldn't give the best of my ability to put it across, sort of thing. So I hope I'll be allowed more time to actually do that, and I'll tell you, explain in a minute there. Lighting, noise, all that sort of stuff has been talked about, and that. One of the big issues, I suppose, is when nobody wants to live next door to a service station, and I don't think any of your councillors would swap my house for your house because of that. It's a terrible thing to have next door to you, and why I sort of need a little bit more time is I'd only just found out recently that in Queensland they've gone through this same battle, building a service station next door to a residential property, and it went to court and so forth, and the judge deemed that they can't build a service station next to residential property, sort of thing. So families. So yeah, but I haven't got enough information to throw at you because I've only just sort of found out about that in the last week. About this development up in Queensland, but the judge has actually, it went on for 3 years apparently, so that's the dribs and drabs that I got. But finally, so in America, there's lots of indications that, you know, they're not allowed to build next to residential property. They, you know, and even the service stations that they have those nozzles on them there that suck the vapor back from the cars. Coming out of the cars, sort of thing, and we don't have any of that here. So we've all been to a service station there, and you get a waft of petrol vapours, and that's what I'm going to have to live with if they build this service station right next door to me. And the other thing is the property value, because nobody's even to this point. If I sold the place now, everybody knows there's going to be a petrol station next door, and you know. I'm now trapped. I don't want to live next door to a service station, and I can't do anything about it. If I sell up, I'm going to have a fire sale and buy a 2-bedroom unit somewhere. So that's what I've got to say.
Thank you very much.
So all right, thank you.
Thank you.
For listening.
Next we have Joshua Fitzgerald, 78 Marlong Road, Orange, in relation to the service station.
Good evening, ladies, gents and councillor. So first off, would like to ask you, as Mario just stated, how would you like it if this was next to you? Sure, none of you would be really engaging in it and would be on the same side of the fence as us. So as you go through this, there's been 2 cases. One for a service station in Queensland that's been condemned due to residential, and there's actually also been one in Victoria where a wash was condemned by the EPA for being next to residential services due to noise regulations. And that was exceeding the noise regulations by some point. This had to be closed down after it was built, and it was pretty much straight after it was built, it was closed down. And leading into that, the mechanical services for this facility are not considered in any of the noise analysis. And the noise analysis is conducted at 23 Molong Road, not the proposed venue. And, in your notes for this meeting and your DA current position, that has not changed. That sound analysis has not been reviewed at the actual residence of the proposed facility. So background levels will be different due to what is currently there. The environmental aspects of this, service station is deemed a hazardous area. I'm a certified hazardous area designer and installer, and I've asked the council to provide me with hazardous area classification drawings. That has not been displayed to me, and that is quite something because that hazardous area could impede on one of our residents' properties nearby. We don't know that. We can't be supplied with the information, so we know that those vapours aren't going to progress into our residences, our homes, and allow ignition or other sources or other issues. And as Mario said, 97% recovery. You look at one litre of petrol lets off a third of a cube of gas or vapour, and 97%. You look at you're doing 1,000 litres an hour. That's a fair bit. 1,000 litres in less than an hour probably in a service station, so that's a lot of vapour to be released in the air anyway. And you look on a sunny day, pump in your car, look at the vapours that proceed into the air. There is direct links. 3 case studies I have found to Hodgkin's lymphoma and childhood leukemia from petrol vapours in service stations and residents living near them, which, as a lot of you may have seen, my submission had all those case studies attached. Yeah, they're my main points, but I just ask you again, what side of the fence are you on? We are the people that put you in this position, and we hope you're on the right side to help the community, help us, help our families. Thank you.
Thanks, Joshua. Lynette Bullen, 1 to 80 Molong Road, Orange.
The Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Councillors, good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak about my concerns regarding the development application of a 24-hour petrol station and car wash at 6874 Molong Road, Orange. I would like to take this opportunity to express my thoughts and concerns regarding the above-mentioned application. At the end of this meeting, you are going to be asked to vote on the development application, and I would like you to see it, this proposal, from a resident's perspective when considering your vote. I'm slightly confused as to why Council would consider approving a petrol station in a residential area. I am aware that we are structured also for industrial area. There are already at least, there's 3 petrol stations within 2 kilometres. One's petrol station within 1.4 kilometres. So within 2 kilometres, there's 4 petrol stations already, and we're looking at putting another one there. There are several grocery and convenience stores within a radius of 2 kilometres. These include IGA, Greengate, and the 4 mentioned earlier petrol stations. So do we need more shops in this area? I have noticed over the years numerous petrol stations that have been decommissioned in Orange, and the vacant facility and land becomes an eyesore in our community. And the health hazards, while they wait years before they can build another structure on it. In July 2017, the then Mayor John Davis and Councillor Taylor both spoke to the CWD about the Northern Distributor being beneficial to the environment regarding reducing trucks coming inside the local CBD. So I asked, why put a 24-hour petrol station in Molong Road? Is that just asking for more traffic to come back into the area? And in the proposal that I read, it also acknowledges that there is going to be an increase in traffic in the area. The land that they want to build the proposed facility slopes down towards homes and a nearby creek. I'm concerned that should there be a spill or a leak, soil and groundwater will be contaminated. Can you and the owners guarantee that there will be no leak in this facility? No, you cannot guarantee that. Let's not forget the hazardous petrol vapours which residents will be subject to on a daily basis, which can increase breathing difficulties for residents who have already got illnesses such as asthma, bronchitis or chronic obstructive airways disease. Petrol vapours are also a significant source of benzene, a known carcinogen for humans. I myself have been undergoing treatment for cancer and I'm now looking at residing next to a facility with petrol vapours, which can also cause cancer. That's not going to be good for me. I have been informed that Council have received noise complaints from residents living in close proximity to a local car wash in the main street of Orange. So why consider a car wash in another residential area where it's only common sense that you'll receive complaints once this facility is open? I can guarantee you that should I hear any noise from my home within the walls, I will be one that will be complaining and it'll be regular. I'm known to complain lots. I am someone who uses the local car wash in town and the noise from the air dryers and alarms are quite noisy, but I only ever need to be there and listen to it for a very brief time. However, the thought of living so close to one is overwhelming, and to have this kind of repetitive noise for up to 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, is something that I'm not looking forward to, especially when I'm sitting outside in my own backyard. Some of you here tonight listening to my concerns will think that these are trivial. But when you're faced with living within 50 metres of a 24-hour petrol station and car wash, it is not trivial for me or my neighbours. So I'd like you to consider, would this be something that you would approve if it was going to be right next door to your home? Thank you.
Thank you. We have David Mallard, who's going to speak on the city's power partnership.
Good evening, councillors, and thanks for the opportunity to address you all. I'm a member of the Environmental Sustainability Community Committee, and I just wanted to make a few comments about the pledges that we've recommended council adopt under the city's power partnership. It's very nearly 30 years since, as a teenager, I first learned about the greenhouse effect and the impact that it was having on our climate. Premier Greiner and Prime Minister Hawke at the time pledged that we needed to act urgently. Since then, science and technology have created very effective solutions to phase out fossil fuels, but delays in action have meant that 3 decades later, the urgency with which we need to take up those solutions is greater than ever. Our community's well-being and prosperity depends on the health of our climate. The impacts of global warming are already being felt, and without urgent change, our greenhouse gas emissions and their effects on the world around us will continue to accelerate. The New South Wales Government's projections for the Central Western Orana region show that in the next few decades, heat waves will continue to increase, cool days will decline, rainfall patterns will change, and fire conditions will worsen. Without concerted action, those changes will affect our region's people, our wildlife, our trees, vines and crops, changing the conditions we all rely on to thrive. Orange City Council has an opportunity to provide community leadership in addressing climate change and transforming the way we use energy, transport and land across our city, villages and farms. With the Paris Agreement in place, there's now a global commitment to climate action. The solutions for reducing our greenhouse emissions are not only available, they continue to become more effective and affordable. Despite the scaremongering of politicians and spokespeople for the dying fossil fuel industries, renewable energy can deliver the goods for the energy sector, the economy and the environment. Expert research and analysis from government and non-government agencies makes clear that we can go 100% renewable and have reliable, dispatchable electricity to meet our energy needs without the polluting and damaging effects being caused by fossil fuels. With our federal and state governments failing to deliver, the leadership and action needs to come from our local governments. Across Australia, from the City of Melbourne to Byron Shire and across many other countries, cities have taken the lead on climate action. Communities like ours can be part of the solution, and in doing so, we can improve the sustainability and success of our region. In my view, the 5 pledges recommended by the committee reflect a vision of how the council can transform the City of Orange to meet our current challenges and achieve long-term success for our community. This involves changes in both council's own operations as well as driving broader change in the community. It involves transforming our energy use by taking up renewable solutions and storage and phasing out fossil fuels. It involves transforming transport use by promoting active travel methods that will remove cars from the road, as well as embracing the massive shift that's coming to electric vehicles in the next decade. And a bit ironic that you guys are considering a petrol station tonight when it might not be that long before there won't be many more coming before council. And it involves improving energy efficiency for council, businesses and residents so that we can manage power demand and budgets. I hope that all councillors will support the recommendation to note the pledges and direct council staff to prepare a report about them for further discussion. I do note that the report accompanying these recommendations says staff need to bring back an assessment of resourcing and financial implications and the scoping of the pledges. And as a member of the Community Committee, I look forward to being involved in discussion about those implications. But I also encourage the council to recognise that any resources and costs involved with strong action need to be balanced against the impacts and the risks that would come from failing to transform and adapt our industries, businesses, our homes, and our public buildings and spaces for the council and the community for this generation and the ones to come. By strongly engaging with the city's power partnership, this council now has the opportunity to contribute to the health and success of our community for generations to come, making Orange a participant in limiting climate change and embracing the opportunity to become an efficient and sustainable city. Thank you.
We have Mr. Andrew Saunders. Topic for discussion is the equine planning proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, General Manager and staff. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I've been engaged by a number of landowners in preparing the submission for the equine planning proposal. It has taken 18 months to get to a point now where an equine associated land use precinct sector is being recognised as a valid part of Orange's lifestyle, economy and tourism sector. Camel races is a good example of the diversity of this sector. Our research has identified well over 1,500 horses exist close to Orange, associated with show horses, thoroughbred racing, gymkhana, pony clubs, equestrian and endurance riding. The merits of an effective and identifiable precinct allows for better promotion, improved professional equine services and economies of scale for an improved equine industry. This in turn leads to a more diverse use of Tauak Racecourse that currently comprises an underutilised part of Orange. The current planning proposal allows for an area which attracts complementary land users and promotes the use of Tauak as a multi-use facility. Similar precincts have been successful at Kembla Grange near Wollongong. Our investigation has also identified that areas west of Gorman Road with large high-end housing with sloping land is unsuitable for equine activity and would lead to a range of land use conflicts with a focus on executive dwellings, landscape gardens and the like. Equine activity presents a different character of stables, outbuildings, round yards and equestrian arenas with a character of equine laneways, infrastructure and common training areas from 5 AM in the morning to dusk. This operational environment is well suited to the Tauak precinct. Council staff have been very supportive of the need for a defined precinct that does not interfere with the Shirley planning objectives or loses sight of the TOAC focus. For this reason, the staff have recommended a reduction in the study area under consideration to ensure a direct link to TOAC Park. This is also consistent with some residents believe that they have the opportunity for full-blown residential, and that has not been supported by Council's strategic planning staff. From a broader economic perspective, however, sales rates show strong demand and limited supply for rural residential land, with over 20 lots purchased per year. The proposal only presents 26 additional lots and will focus on local planning controls under a specific DCP to ensure equine character is directly associated with TOAC Park. The proposal is also of a consistent character with the 8 existing small holdings fronting Ploughman's Lane South. The Spencer precinct west of Gorman Road, as discussed, and Clifton Grove extensions have been quickly exhausted. The current planning proposal is the next logical step that represents the needs of Shirley, TOAC Park activities and the broader strategic framework of the sustainable settlement strategy. Therefore, I conclude that in terms of logical land use planning and allowing the cluster of like with like users that can extend the use of TOAC Park in an appropriate step forward for the city as a whole.
Thank you. Honours. We have Mr. Greg Kings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, General Manager and council staff. At the last council meeting, we were here to request support of the DA, which we've actually submitted. We've gone away from the last council meeting and believe that we've adapted and made concessions to the major request in reference to the roof line to this dwelling. Feedback is that we have addressed that, and I understand that from the report the recommendation is for approval for our development site this evening. Consequently, we did have a number of consultation meetings with council officers in trying to move forward through some of the other issues that we were trying to make concessions with, which I think we've achieved with some of them. One of the issues that has come back, though, is that it's been extended from what now is a roof line in reference to now the facial look of the building. And we've provided line of sight drawings in reference to this, and from the Heritage Advisor's comment that haven't appreciated and adapted the actual opportunity to make change, I think we've made quite a number of concessions with this development through the period of time. So that's one concession that I think that we've actually now been expanded further from beyond the last meeting. So we've addressed the issue. Now something else has come back in recommendation in this actual DA approval. There's a few other things that have come back in this approval that are either expanded or additional to what was actually being looked at in the last meeting, in the sense of what might have been approved or might not have been approved. So I've just asking the councillors to look at it objectively. As I said at the last meeting, it needs to be balanced. There are some things in there, and maybe the opportunity is I just have a meeting with the Development Assessment Manager before we just get one finalisation of that. But the overall, the DA, I appreciate, is recommended for approval. But there is just some things that have now popped up since consequently meetings and what discussions were had with council officers for what's been put forward tonight. So I thank the council for the opportunity to speak, and I look forward to a vote on what our development is going forward.
Mr. Kings. The next speaker is Michael Thornhill, and the organisation is the Jet Swim Club Orange.
Good evening, councillors and council staff. My name is Michael Thornhill. I'm president of the Jet Swim Club in Orange. On behalf of our members in the club, we'd like to offer our support for the formation of a new swim club to be based out of the Orange Aquatic Centre. This is a very significant new move for our club, because if it should proceed, it'll result in the dissolution of our club. However, our members believe that this will be in the best interest for the swimming public of Orange particularly the kids that are swimming in the sport now and for the years to come.
Thank you, Michael. And the last speaker is Tanya Chapman. It's on the City of Orange Swimming Club.
Good evening, the Mayor, General Manager and councillors. Tonight I would like to talk about the formation of the One Club in Orange. Last Thursday I received an email in regards to information that was a report that was going to be considered by council tonight. And I'd just like to sort of, have the support of some members here tonight and swimmers who would like answers. And unfortunately, at this point in time, I haven't been able to give them answers because I have raised questions, plenty of questions that have come back from the members, and the questions have not been answered. So I'm hoping at the end of tonight, you can actually give me some answers for myself and for the members. So I'll just read out some stuff that I would like you to consider. The report that was sent to me last Thursday night in regards to that you were going to talk about tonight, the report is not accurately and doesn't reflect on the position of City of Orange Swim Club. And why? We haven't made a decision because we have not been given feedback on questions. We have asked and are unsure to where the City of Orange coaches fit in all of this. City of Orange Swim Club are happy to consider coming on board, but City of Orange Swim Club have not been able to actively consider it without the information required for such a decision that any normal club or business would require if they were to enter such a relationship. The information includes the formation of the One Club with the information that has been handed to us is very biased. The financial status of the clubs to merge, including current assets and financials, number of financials members. We have over 100 swimmers and we are growing. An implementation plan, including the proposed communication plan and associated timeframes. No structure in regards to what it looks like or how it will work has been provided as of yet. A proposed draft new lane allocation. What is confirmed for the future for all swimmers based on numbers and lane allocation? All that we have at hand is what was agreed on the 21st of March last year. So in winter, I've currently signed off with the lane allocations. I've done the roster for our club and for the Jets. They were quite happy with what I had submitted. It was a 50-50 proposal down the line. And it was Monday to Saturday lane allocations available, as well as Monday to Friday evening. What we're trying to find it really hard to understand is nothing's going to change because those allocations in winter is going to be the same. You put those two clubs together, you're going to have more numbers. And we currently do have swimmers coming from Learn to Swim into our clubs, as well as other clubs provided. So if that number was to grow, if only 4 lanes are going to be provided on a Monday to Saturday morning basis, as well as a Monday to Friday, which we currently have and been signed off for winter, it's only going to make it more difficult. So what we need a little bit more clarity on is if the numbers do grow with the two clubs coming together, as well as more kids coming from Learn to Swim program, will there be more lanes available? Because it's not going to change the debacle in lane allocation. The Council's ability to change a policy that negatively affects the longest established registered New South Wales swimming club in Orange to benefit a council-run club only by ways of council changing a policy is not only negligent, but a conflict as it's forcing a club that has been operational in Orange for over 50 years, with 100 members to cease operation as the club cannot run with Category 3 allocation. Long-term members, for example, life members, history, 50 years, which could be considered as a heritage. The perceived issue around the lane allocation to initiate the need for a new club has not been substantiated as to date. We are yet to see a policy or reporting process, let alone statistics to support this claim. For example, lane allocation. Who is it an issue for? All I've heard in the past is it's an issue that there's fight in the background. I haven't lived in Orange all my life. I've lived in Orange for 5.5 years. I've actually been the head coach for City of Orange for 4.5 years. I have not had any debacle in lane allocations with the Jets, So if there has been any information that has been reported to any of you guys, it'd be like we'd be really interested to know what it was, because we are yet to see it. There hasn't been any of that. Most importantly, there has not to date been an outline of the benefits to the swimmers of Orange and the ratepayers of Orange. No lane hire fees for a new council club, meaning a loss of $40,000, which is going to be proposed tonight. Nearly further complicate council's justification for the benefits to ratepayers and to the swimmers of Orange that have reduced funds to put back into the facility. Is this information available, outlining benefits to all swimmers and ratepayers? If so, could it please be provided? Can council afford a $40,000 loss, approximately annually? Who will foot the bill? Will it be ratepayers? If this can happen, why in 5 years lane hire, when I started, has gone from $3 an hour and is currently $14 an hour? How can this be waived all of a sudden? To finish it off is, I'm a little bit confused to the proposal that was last year. There was one club for the merge and there was one club against the merge. Because the two clubs were not for the merge, councillors decided to form a council club. Back in October last year, I was given a phone call to have a meeting to discuss to whether we could change our view, because council could not afford to pay a coach under the aquatic centre. So if that resolution, things have changed, I really would hope that you could reconsider and renegotiate this proposal moving forward, because it's actually going back to the clubs now to see if we can merge as one club, but it will be all volunteered staff. I know when I send my kids to school, they're now at uni, you paid for a paid teacher, like teachers are getting paid. You want consistency. Whereas if you're going to have a volunteer coaches, if something arises or they're not well or they don't feel like turning up that night, it's not going to have that, it's going to have that inconsistency there, and the kids will drop off. I love the sport of swimming and I intend to coach for a hell of a lot more years, and I would like more kids to join both clubs. I think moving forward, 2 clubs is a great option for the simple reason you give people choice. When you take that choice away, you lose the statistics and people don't become interested anymore. I have been around swimming from the age of 8, swum myself. There's always been that choice there, especially being out in the country. When you don't have choice, it becomes very hard to keep those kids interested in the sport. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you consider everything I've said tonight. Thank you.
Council meeting resumes, and with 3.1 is confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Orange City Council held on the 20th.
The minutes. Hang it, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question on item on page 10. It's to do with the Gosling Creek Reserve, and I know that it moved at the last meeting to go through with the plan of management. But what my question is, back in November, I've got a copy of the motion that myself and Councillor Privatera and myself put forward, asking for camping to be included. And I just can't understand. It's been 6 months almost, and it was resolved that we get a report. I don't know if anyone else has got one, but I certainly haven't seen a report on that yet. And where I'm heading with this is that if it's been 6 months, the plan of management...
Is this anything to do with the minutes, or are we talking about the actual... are the minutes correct or are they incorrect?
Well, it's a question. It's a question. So can I ask the question, Mr. Mayor? Because it's very confusing that it's been almost 6 months, and I don't understand why the motion that was put to council and agreed on, which was to get a report, we still haven't got a report. So can that be answered?
Who do you want? Would you rather take the question on? Take the question on notice and it'll come back as a report to you.
Okay.
Can I just have a follow-up question on what Councillor Romano is talking about? Has the request, which was done on the page 10, been sent off to the Minister?
Through you, Mr Chair, yes, I understand that that's been forwarded to the Minister.
My question to you, Mr Mayor, is if there's a resolution moved in September, back in September or November 6 months later, asking for the exact things, and we put through a resolution like this the other day, I mean, something's gone wrong. Totally wrong there.
Okay.
I thought when we moved the resolution to council, put everything back in abeyance of what was actually happening.
Look, and I suggest that we'll ask the GM, contact the Minister for Land or the Minister for Lands and Forestry's office tomorrow and just ask that to be on hold until we get back. Thank you. Any other questions on the minutes? All in favour? Yeah. We have the council meeting adjourned for the conduct of the policy committees. And first of all, we have Planning and Development Committee Chairperson, Councillor Turner.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. A pleasure opening the Planning and Development Committee of Orange City Council at approximately 20 to 8. And 1.1, any declarations of interest? Councillor Taylor.
Yes, Mr Chairman, I'll be declaring an interest in item 2.4, less than significant non-pecuniary interest. I am a director of Octec Limited, and I believe that an owner of properties associated with
Thank you. And we already have a number of other councillors that have declared interest previously. There are no other declarations. We go on to 2.1, items approved under the delegated authority of council. Councillor Hamling and Councillor Kidd. Discussion? There's no discussion. I'll put all those in favour. Against? Carried. 2.2, development application DA 347 68 to 74 Molong Road, with the recommendation on page 11. I will move the recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Romano seconded. Any discussion? Councillor Whitten.
Mr Chairman. I rise to speak against the motion for approval. I've heard a number of speakers here tonight, and for the benefit not of councillors but for the gallery, councillors under the planning laws have to make a decision based on planning or based on merit. Not allowed to make a decision based on whether we would like it or not like it. Leave it to us. That would be a wonderful world if we could, but state government have put in laws to prevent councillors from making decisions on planning based on emotional aspects or those sorts of things. But in saying that, when we do put up a motion to refuse an application, we must do it based on planning law, and we must give the staff our opinion on what we believe that to be. And in saying that, I would like to put up an amendment that staff bring back to council an instrument of refusal based on entity. I've gone through this report word for word, and it was very difficult to find something to actually give council staff to come back for a refusal, because under its current zoning, it is legal to build station B6 zoned area. The B6 zoned area has been there for many, many years, probably before the urban area was built. But in saying that, there is an urban area there now. Councillors in past, before my time, long before my time, chose to build an urban area to that part of Orange, to the north, and knowing that there were B6 zones in that area, which didn't really affect it at the time because they were light industrial, normal business hour type businesses. So we are now looking at a business which will be 4x7, will make the area change its whole landscape as an urban area with light industrial to now an open for business area that, let's face it, will make substantial noise, will increase the traffic in that area, will divert heavy vehicle traffic potentially off the Northern Distributor, be rediverted to that area, and in fact that will affect the amenity of that area and those who live within that area. So, Mr. Chairman, that is the reason that I rise to raise the amendment. I don't believe I have a seconder.
You do.
And I've talked line, Mr. Chairman. I apologise without getting a second. If I do get the support of Council here tonight, Council Laws, need to bear in mind that that has to come back to us once the Council staff do bring the refusal back. Keep in mind that subject to probably after that the Land Environment Corp. But anyway, in saying that, Mr. Chairman, that is the reason I put forward this.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten, and it has now been seconded by Councillor Munro. Councillor Munro.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak on the item as well. As you know, I've been for development in so many different places. I think it's important that we have jobs and growth in infrastructure things, but I do agree with the amenity aspect of this. It is in a residential area. The neighbours will be impacted, and talk to anyone that lives next to lived next to a facility like this, they are impacted one way or the other. It's I think it's something that we're going to have a chat about, but I do think refusal is the way to go here, and I'd like to see the support from other councillors for this reason. We have plenty of opportunities to put facilities like this in other areas. This has nothing to do with this business case, but we have to look at how Orange grows and goes forward. But the mistakes that we may have made in the past, addressing things as far as amenity and people's peace and quiet in a residential area. Think really hard. We'll think where those places could be, but we make a mistake again. But I just think we need to really put our thinking caps on how we go about this development, what that area should be, and I would like to recommend refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'd like to speak in support of the amendment. And I think there is, for the same reasons as both Councillor Whitten and Councillor Munro, but I think there is reasons, planning reasons, in terms of cumulative impacts for preparing a notice of refusal. On page 39 of our report, it talks about 4 different typical scenarios where cumulative impacts can arise, and it acknowledges that this development can generate a number of those scenarios. However, it concludes that the imposed conditions of consent will ensure that the likely cumulative impacts are kept within community expectations. Now, I'd like to ask, well, whose community expectations are we talking about? Are we talking about the general community, or are we talking about the members of the community who live in the immediate proximity of this development? And surely their expectations are important and critical in this. We've heard from a number of speakers tonight about their expectations about this development and about their expectation to be able to live, continue living, peaceful, quiet lifestyle in the homes that they bought. I believe that while the business units proposed for this unit are yes, they're allowable uses under the zoning. However, when you put everything together, when you put, you know, the petrol station, the fumes, the light spillage, noise that comes from the petrol station, from the car wash, you've got two shops there. When you add all of those things together and put on top of that the 24-hour nature of the operation, and I don't know that we've really got our head around this sort of 24-hour nature of the operation. This is something, well, it's not new, but how do we take those sorts of things into account in planning legislation? So to me, when you add all of those things together, and my concerns are principally around the noise, and the impact of the light spillage on the neighbouring properties. Now, I commend council staff for the work they've done trying to put in place conditions which would mitigate, minimise those impacts. However, I don't think that you can sort of get rid of those impacts altogether. And I think this development represents a total change of use, even though it's within the same zoning area. It's a total change of use of this particular. And so, for those reasons, I support.
Thank you, Councillor Nugent. Any other speakers?
Mr. Chair,
Councillor Taylor.
Can I just make one point of order? It's not the amendment; it's been the motion, Councillor. You actually moved the motion. No,
yes,
sorry about that. Yep. I'm concerned, Mr. Chairman, about our legality where we sit on this. I mean, we've all been, or a lot of us here have been in these type positions. No, we wouldn't like it next to us. No, we wouldn't like it in proximity. That's a given. But the fact of the matter is, we also have a responsibility to ratepayers as a whole, and that has to be a responsible position as far as when we expose the ratepayers to litigation and costs in Environment Court. I've read the report very closely, and I couldn't see any that would stick out to me that would up and be able to vigilantly defend and vigorously defend in Environment Court. So that's my greatest issue. Also precedent as far as the BSEX zoning of the area. I far from that area, and I was a kid, but the fact of the matter is there wasn't a lot of the residences there at that time. I think the way to go, Mr. Chairman, and I can only make this suggestion, is that I'm acutely aware of our exposing ourselves in a legal way. We can all stand up and say, look, we oppose this, yeah, sure, that'll make you feel better tonight, but it won't make the problem go away if it goes to Land Environment Court. Cost of ratepayers and enormous development still goes ahead, as has happened in the past. Plus over there is a classic example of that costs. Defended a refusal there. I think the major issue that I've dwelled over with the report is, of course, the same as what we're facing Lucknow, and that's the time that the service station is open, the 24-hour side of it. I would much rather than what Councillor Whitten has put forward, a refusal, a point-blank refusal, which again scares me about how vulnerable we'd be with that. to ask that council staff can go back and negotiate with the proponents about cutting the hours back to reasonable times. That would be, I mean, we can argue the point that in a residential area, but it's also one of the main arteries into our city, and it will always remain that way. The Northern Distributor is in place, and I got the funding originally for that Northern Distributor, but the fact of the matter is we're probably still going to have significant there has been heavy industry past in that area for a lot longer than we're all around this planet. I've seen these come and go, Mr. Chairman, these very difficult issues. And from my experience, far better off for the residents concerned, for the proprietors or the developers, to go back and try and negotiate a cut in operation. Cutting hours of operation could, as far as what per time, but I would imagine they'd have to go back and do sums and figures on they've calculated as far as turnover and so. But I'd like to try that first before we come back with a point blank refusal as to that very significant cost in the land. Case it, quite frankly, we back that the zoning's there in place, there for all to see. I don't think we'd have. That's my view.
So you're moving that as a second amendment, Councillor Taylor?
I'd have to foreshadow that, I suppose.
Happy to second his foreshadowed meeting.
I'd have to foreshadow that as an amendment following correct procedure. I understand what Councillor Whitten's doing, but I can't see it flying, and in the interest of the higher ratepayer community, far better outcome for everyone involved.
You got it, Councillor Duffy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just Chairman, sorry. I agree with what Councillor Whitten says, and I'm also agreeing more with what Councillor Taylor's saying about this. I don't want to stop this business from going ahead because I see nothing wrong with daylight hours. But that's a highway that goes through there, and we expect to see trucks and all those type of things goes down there, which is going to create noise issues. It's going to create lighting if it's 24 hours. To me, that's not right. I think council is probably a victim of its own growth in the fact that it hasn't adjusted the area around the residential areas where it's expanded to eliminate or change the zonings of this. This is a D6 zone, and it's allowable under a D6 zone. So I think the reason why I'm supporting what Councillor Taylor's saying is give us the opportunity to go back and talk to the developer and say, look, hey, we're not happy with the 24 hours because it does create noise issues, it does create lighting issues, and it has created parking issues, especially when I read the part there as regards to parking for the wash station, the wash station. Well, you go down to these ones down here and you see cars parked out the front and all these things. So they do create parking issues along with the other various different types of businesses going to occur. And I wouldn't like to live like these people here. I wouldn't like to live right alongside one that's there at midnight, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, or whatever the case may be. That doesn't sit well with me, especially with those issues. But I'm 100% behind what Councillor Taylor's trying to get to, is get the staff to go back and say, look, okay, we have a 12-hour situation there. Can we see if we can come with that? Because we don't want to finish up in court. We don't want to stop the business. We just want to work with these people to try and get a good result, not only for the Orange, but for the residents as well.
Do you any other speakers on either the amendment foreshadowed or the motion? Okay, well, I'll put the amendment, which is, Michelle, could you read that out?
The amendment is moved by Councillor Whitten, seconded Councillor Munro. Staff prepare an instrument of refusal based on grounds of amenity.
So all those in favour of the...
Point of order, Mr Chairman. I'm not a point of order, just a point of clarification. Procedure, what we're going to vote on now is if the amendment wins, that allows it. Yeah, just so everyone is aware of what can happen is the fact. Is that correct?
Yep, that's how I understand it. Yep.
Need a show of hands, yeah.
Show of hands, all those in favour of the amendment. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against? 3, 4, 5. Which way do you go, Councillor Duffy?
Amendment becomes the motion, and
Yeah.
then the
Well,
shadow motion
sorry, I
comes
didn't
through.
see you put your hand up. That was all.
Oh, it was
Right, okay. So the amendment becomes the motion. We now put the shadow.
amendment now gets put forward. Mr. Chairman, I'll move that council defer this matter so that staff can undertake negotiations or consultation with the developer over operating hours of the facility.
And it's been seconded. Any other discussion?
The only thing I'll say, Mr. Chairman, I just reiterate my words. I think this would be a far better outcome than exposing us to a very costly legal battle in the Land Environment Court. It is totally permissible. The development as it stands at the moment is totally, I think, given the concern up there, a lot of their concerns, what I've heard tonight, do surround the hours of operation. If that with the operators and the developers, I think it would be around mechanical operations and so forth. So of a daytime, I could not see it being. You see, there'd be more traffic movements, but I couldn't as far as noise and. I'll certainly move that.
Thank you. Councillor Whitten.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be supporting the amendment. Simple reason is that if we do decide to bring back an instrument refusal, part of the clauses will be from the Land and Environment Court, and this has been in your 8 years, Mr. Chairman, is that we need to show that we have had mediation with the developer. If we were to go ahead with a full-blown refusal without considering an amendment that's been put forward by another developer, at least mediate with the developer, then we're shot ducks straight away. So my advice would be that we do support the amendment to give the developer the opportunity to negotiate on their hours. That way we've met the criteria.
Any other? Councillor Munro.
Just my opinion, Mr. Chair, is I think we need to send a strong message to the developer, much as that the amenity is very important to council, and council send a very strong message that to refusal. I think is the way to go, because we need to be strong about how we go forward, and we're representatives of the people that they've voted in to give our opinion, and my personal opinion is that we should go for a refusal, so that it's a strong message of what we would like. I think that's important. That's my personal opinion. Anyone else can make, of course, their own opinion on that, but I'll be voting for a refusal.
Councillor Hamlin.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I totally disagree with Councillor Munro. I think having negotiations in light of what could happen down the road would look in favour of us being able to negotiate and being willing to negotiate. That's the word, willing to negotiate. So I'll be supporting the foreshadowed amendment, if that's what. Yeah.
Councillor Nugent.
Thanks. Yeah, I really have a question, but I just wanted to note that the idea of bringing back the operating hours to maybe 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, that's still going to result in a fair bit of noise issues until that time of night, and also light issues, light spillage into neighbouring properties. But also it doesn't really address the fuel vapour issue that some of the speakers raised. However, I just wanted to ask a question through you to the director about whether in any discussions with the applicants, whether there has been any indication how they would feel about the possibility of reducing the hours from 24. Is there any likelihood of success of negotiation in that regard?
Really, Mr. Chair, they've asked for these operating hours. I'd imagine if faced with a refusal that they will be willing to talk.
Chairman, may I just add that whatever decision we do tonight, should the foreshadowed amendment be successful, this DA application has to come back to council for nation again. So this is not the final. Either a full refusal has to come back, or a foreshadowed amendment has to come back.
Okay, any other discussion? Councillor McRae.
Chair, I think this is probably the first example in this new council of the concerns about possible risks of legal action. And as a new councillor, I've certainly learnt a lot tonight about the options that we have. And I would support the foreshadowed amendment because it provides an opportunity for all of us to make an informed judgment to the best of our ability, protect ratepayer funds and take also the view that the very passionate residents who have put us in the position of making a very important decision for their residential amenity. I appreciate not only the speakers from the gallery, but also my fellow councillors who have provided very sound debate and judgment in terms of putting forward options which reduce the risk of us making an uninformed judgment here tonight.
You, Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to elaborate on any of this stuff that I've already said or what others have said, but I think there's a clear message coming from our community, not only this one, but a lot of others that we've discussions with, that go to other sites. I think they're crying out for us to hurry up and make a decision on getting something like a truck stop, a whole complete service centre on the NDR. I think that's extremely important because these things aren't going to pop up in future, these issues.
Thank you. No other discussion. I'll put the amendment. Is everyone clear on what the amendment is? I think so. Show of hands again. All those in favour of the amendment? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There, the amendment carried. The amendment now becomes the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Munro is not quite sure. Carried, 11 to 1. Thank you.
I voted for the amendment.
Councillor Miletto's not here, so we've got 11.
3, development application 26 Cox Avenue. Have a mover.
To the recommendation.
It has moved. Councillor Whitten has seconded. Any discussion? Nugent.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. It's more a question in relation to, on page 163, regarding privacy issues, recommend that the condition of consent be attached to in relation to the windows overlooking the open space at 28 Cox Avenue. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the Director again, which condition, I was having a look through the conditions notice of approval, and I couldn't see which condition that resided in.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask Mr. Johnson to help me here, who's in the gallery here.
Johnson.
Give me a minute, I'll just have a quick look.
Anyone else got another question while we're waiting?
Mr. Chair.
Have we had a notice of approval?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Johnson, is it condition,
condition
17?
17. Yep. Read that out if you like. It's amended architectural plan shall be submitted and approved by the council's manager to develop assessments prior to the issue of construction certificate. The amended plans must incorporate a screening device in the form of obscure glazing or obscure film for the north-facing habitable room windows of dwelling 1 and dwelling 2 to prevent direct overlooking of habitable rooms and private open space 28 Cox Avenue.
Thank you.
And prior to the issue of a construction certificate.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. No other discussion? I'll move the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Hands? All those in favour? Unanimous. 2.4, development application 122 McLaughlin Street. As a number of councillors have declared an interest. Acknowledge it. I'll move the recommendation. With the exception of condition 7, with the word horizontal to be replaced with the word vertical. It's to do with the outside cladding on the first floor.
Page 212, Mr. Chair.
Response from the director on that. What difference does it make?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, it would be contrary to what the Heritage Advisor is recommending, but I think at this late stage, I think it's council's call on this one, whether vertical versus horizontal would make any difference. Roof has been changed significantly. I'll let you make that call. Aesthetics.
I have another question, Mr. Chairman. My question goes back to the issue of the Hills Shire Council questioning these type of organisations coming through. And what I want to know is there been any direction from the Planning Minister or the Premier or anyone else that's given any indication of what the issues that have been raised by by the Hills Council to boarding houses?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if the Hills example. And what we're dealing with here is a state environmental planning policy on boarding houses, which I think is designed to take it somewhat out of the hands of local councils. Saw the memo I circulated today about a review of the parking requirements for boarding houses. But I don't know of the Hills example.
Okay, it just concerns me that if new is happening or it's in the wind, we have to take it into account when we're making a decision on all those topics.
Just, if I may, Mr. Chair, today I sent a memo out to you which doesn't affect this boarding house. The state has got a publication on exhibition for comment, therefore it would be relevant, possibly to another boarding house that might be coming in the future. For this one, Mr. King's development actually supplies enough parking, more than enough parking, that even that proposed amendment wouldn't affect. So that, yeah, you're right, these things have currency, but in this case tonight, not.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll be supporting this. This came to the last meeting and it was knocked back, and the developer has gone away and taken on what was said and re-amended his plan. So I think it's worthy to go through.
Councillor Munro.
Yeah, look, I'd like to commend the developer for being so tolerant and sort of listening to concerns that have been brought up over time, and board, I do commend you for that, and obviously a very good businessman, and to get this back to us and for something for us to vote on tonight, I commend staff as well. Let's put it to bed. I think it's very important that we approve this development.
Thank you. No other speakers. If I just make a comment, Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, I just want to make the comment is that I think if it meets all the planning requirements, we don't have much choice about what we want to do. What was here. I agree with the developer, where I commend the developer for making those changes which were required. The things there, to me, people don't make concessions or anything like that. I mean, that concessions, it's a matter about meeting the requirements of the LEP is more important than what making concession is, because a concession could be anything. It should be meeting the LEP, and that's what's happened here. So I think I'm going to support the recommendation.
Yep. Okay. No. All I'll comment on is that the developer is developing this block. He's going to spend just on $2 million developing the block, which was in a very bad state of disrepair, and there's been arguments about a maple tree, and when the subdivision was carried out, the maple tree was found to be on the adjoining block, not even on his block. The developer has agreed to change the roof from a skillion to not only a gable but a Dutch gable. The developer believes that the vertical cladding will enhance his building, and within reason, it is his building. So I believe it's a reasonable concession that he has asked, and that's why I'm supporting it. So no other comments. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Unanimous. Call everyone back. We're all back. Go to 2.5, development application, Honeyman Drive and Quinlan Run. It's been moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Privatera. Any comment?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say the fact that I think it's just a further step in the completing of the development of that area there, which is something I know a lot of the residents have been waiting on to be able to go straight along Honeyman Drive instead of having going up around areas of the apartment.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Again, I suppose it's just a question about active travel. Council's been very active on promoting sort of active travel opportunities, developments. So the opportunity for people to use bicycles or to walk rather than having to drive everywhere. So, footpaths, bike paths. I think the report talks about bus service, which goes near this development. But again, a question, Director, about what other provisions are there in this development for active?
Through Mr. Chair, I think this is an older area where we're just finishing off this subdivision, so it's a bit difficult to answer the question. I would say, though, having driven it this morning with Councillor McRae, you are at that point, if you're a kid, you can come down that street and hit Council's bike path that goes past the showground. Pretty quick order. So, if you're heading to a primary school in East Orange, there are some opportunities, but what you're saying about future subdivisions, large scale.
And I think it's fairly important that this subdivision does go through. Talking to real estate agents and developers the last couple of weeks, the available building blocks are being snapped up, which is great for Orange. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. 2.7. 2.6, isn't it? 2.6. I'll jump. I've already got it on the page. I forgot. Right. 2.6. Draft planning proposal. Towak Equine Precinct. Any comments? Councillor Munro.
Look, I'd love to give it in principle support. I think we all should support concept, and let's see how it all comes about. I think in the future it could be a great idea for Towak Park to have some sort of substance and bring some more people in with racehorses to be able to work at the Towak Park. Now, I mean, I've a lot to do with the industry over my life, racing industry and the rest of it, and places for Sydney have stabling complexes very close to the track, especially now that we've started the harness racing. Towak, great opportunity for a variety of different racing codes to the same facility, and maybe in the future, maybe not right now, but maybe 10, 15 years or so on the development of Towak and the precinct around it could really be a place of excellence for equine racing. I think other stuff as well, you know, there's no reason why we have major equestrian things at the same facility. I just think it's a good concept. Really look forward to seeing it mature into something that could happen. So,
thank you. Councillor McRae.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got a question regarding the suggested development, and that's regarding whether there are existing landholders, effectively some of the neighbours, and we have had a submission this afternoon. So for existing landholders who have concerns about the change to their zoning and the potential impacts on their land, their home or their business, specifically, for example, requiring, I'm going to call it horse-friendly fencing. I don't have a huge background in, but I understand it could be a more expensive fencing option. The materials required to construct sheds, etc., may in fact preclude some of the existing landholders from putting a new shed in their back garden or replacing existing fencing. So to what extent does the process from here include those concerns of existing landholders and the impacts it may have on their choices of what they do with the land that they own?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that's the way this has been set up is quite open to all this. So next steps, detail, get a DCP, get real layouts and some detail worked out with the applicant. Public exhibition will be a key part. There'd be public exhibition followed by you guys voting twice more on this. I would suggest to anyone in the audience who to keep an eye on this, because this will have some months to run.
Thank you, Mr. Bedell. Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a follow-on question to Councillor McRae's questions. This development, I'm certainly not being a horse person. We've never had horses. I'm not a horsey person, but look, I can understand that
environmentally friendly they are.
Very environmentally friendly. I understand that there are a lot of people who are interested in horses and owning horses. My daughters would have loved to have owned horses, but anyway, that's another story. But and I can understand the concept. I think it's a good concept. Having those developments close to Tauak Park, enabling greater diversity of use of Tauak Park, it all makes sense. It all makes sense, and I'd be interested to see how this proposal develops. I guess I've got a couple of questions regarding the rezoning and why the choice of RU4 primary production small lots versus the other options that were canvassed in the the exclusion. Well, for those people who may want to buy a lot in that development who are not intending to own horses, would there be any impediment doing so? And maybe that's a question for further down the track, maybe not for now.
No,
and also noting the Southern Feeder Road does go through this development, and can we be, assured that there's going to be no impact on the Southern Feeder Road of this proposal?
Mr. Waddell.
Mr. Chair, I can answer those questions. Simply, we chose RU4 because it was a much unused zone for us in the LEP. So we've just chosen that. We've been in negotiation with the Planning New South Wales. So that's a technicality. In terms of an impediment, I think if you go ahead with this, you'll see staff want this to be a equine precinct. We want there to be impediments from just anyone moving into this precinct. There would be no sense to do this and let normal people in. I have horses, and let non-horse people in because the purpose of an equine precinct. So I think this is all about protecting Tauak, encouraging equine people to come in. And the third question, Mr. Greenham's been through this in fine tooth comb, and the Southern Feeder Road impacts, future road networks have been considered.
Yeah, just briefly, there's a number of developments that use underpasses, whether they're to create an underpass under the racing track itself or under a road, but yeah, Rose Hill or whatever. And there's similar things in Brisbane as well. So having such a facility would take that conflict away from any future Southern Feeder Road connection through there.
Councillor Kidd.
Look, I think the most important thing at this stage, this is a proposal and we're giving it additional support. There is a long way to go with something such as this. There are other folk that live out that way that perhaps like to subdivide their place into residential instead of 5 acres. Iterations. An underpass, well, we just did a walking underpass under the railway and that was $600,000. So talking about some big sums here, an underpass under a road sounds cheap, but millions. So there's lots of considerations to go in. I have no trouble. I'm one of those horsey folk. I like horsey folk. I go out to Tailwack a fair bit. I'd love to see better utilisation of around there with Pony Club, all sorts of things. But so I'm looking forward to further work coming back because I remember well where you live, Mr. Chairman. Set up for that reason, for people to live out in the country on their 5 acres, put in all these bridle tracks all around there, all leading down to another area of land that had a shed on it, horse yard, cattle yards. Then what happens? Kids take off, no one wants to feed the horse, including mum and dad. Then the council gets 5 million complaints about the bridle tracks, the grass growing on the bridle tracks and the weeds on the bridle tracks. Then you lease it out, try and keep the grass down. People ring up and complain about the stock bridle parts. And then people don't use the other thing, and it becomes a real fire services shed. Turn the mud house into a horse yard for all the people who got horses out there and there's 2 people use it. I think there's a lot of things to consider, to really consider. I hope all those answers come forward positively and it stacks up economically for the people proposing it. It gets the support of people in the equine industry. But we're quite fickle, people in the equine industry. The director said we are different. We are different. Fickle. I would hope that what will come back to us, and it will go, and as I said, it does have to go on exhibition, and it will go through the process of coming through to councils, at least. So the opportunity's there for everyone to have input, pro, against, looking on the outside what's proposed at the moment, a whole range of issues. So I don't think we should get too held up at the moment on some of the intricacies of it. Long way to go.
Any normal councillors want to make a comment? Councillor Whitten.
I regard it as normal. That's a pretty long bow, Mr. Chairman. It's a great idea.
Apologise.
The Deputy Mayor's question was, do people who live in that area, if this was rezoned, they already live there and they get rezoned, they don't have to. Means that it's going to be equine friendly. For those in the future who are looking for that area, that type of area. So it means that if my place was zoned for a subdivision, doesn't mean I have to make it into a subdivision, just and become as rich as all these other people. So, you know, I think it's a fantastic idea and it's in the right precinct thing, and I think that we need to, it helps promote Tailwack Park. And we've got other areas around like Bathurst who are sort of leading the way in trotting and greyhounds and know about the gallopers, but certainly this would help us, a stronger area in our Tailwack Park area to promote that industry.
Okay, no other comments. I'll put Councillor Duffy.
Right reply, Mr. Chairman. This is something I think I'm like Councillor Whitten here. I totally applaud the developers to coming through and putting something like this. Something myself and the director is talking about.
You're a bit worried, Mr. Chairman. He's agreed with me too many times tonight.
doing something about protecting our horsing industry out there on those type of things. I don't know the correct words. That's all I know about horses. I've got a few of them. But in saying that, I know myself when Councillor, the Mayor, went, when we spoke about the Ballarat agreement, we went down to Ballarat and we noticed that around their racetrack there's a lot of the same situations happening down there as regards to a horse precinct around those areas. And it happens in a lot of other cities, and I think this is a step forward for us to catch up, to make that we're helping to protect an industry there. So I think it's a huge step in the right direction, I think. And as the Mayor said, we've got a bit of way to go. So I do have one quick question for the Director. If we take out 45 Ploughman's Lane, how would that affect that map that's there?
Mr. Chair, which one's 45 Ploughman's Lane? 45 Ploughman's Lane?
45 Ploughman's Lane, how would it affect that?
Let me just refresh my memory. Which one? 45.
That'll be the cat place.
Yes, Councillor, which place is 45 Ploughman's?
Barley Bell or something like that.
I would suggest it's the one with the circular or the loop driveway. Which is about halfway
yes.
down the small 1 acre.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Councillor McRae. We took that out of the rezoning process. Question.
I'm happy to if the second.
Oh, I see.
To leave it out. We got to say, hey, we don't want to be part of it. Well, they don't want to be part of it. Why bother putting them in the first place?
Well, I would say
they're on the edge.
Next step process will be to get all of those landowners involved and work with them on detail.
I'm quite
and if they want,
thank you. You've answered my question. Thank you very much.
Sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other comments?
Just one comment. And let's be honest about this. Our horses, and horses come in all shapes and sizes and they're used in different things. Don't think that this is going to have an increase of the horses on the racetrack proper at Towak. You don't let ponies, equestrian horses and pony club horses race around the track.
Back to a few donkeys, Mr.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And just quickly, business arising, we're talking about Towak Park. I'd like to congratulate the Lions Club and all those that were of the hugely successful camel races at the weekend. According to media, there were 6,000 to 7,000 people out there. It's a long time since there's been 6,000 to 7,000 watching the thoroughbreds out at Towak Park, and I understand they raised something like $40,000. So congratulations, they're going from success to success. So a very well organised event, and they were just lucky they had excellent weather as well. 2.7, itinerant trading. The recommendation on page 479.
Second the motion.
Councillor Nugent.
Councillor Duffy moved it.
Councillor Duffy and Councillor Nugent. Any comments?
Mr. Chair, I think this is a very positive step forward in terms of Orange as a food and wine destination. I think it supports the opportunities for small business. If in fact we do look at a new way to increase and encourage mobile food vending vehicles. I understand there are some concerns that may be raised by existing, particularly commercial ventures in our CBD who may be concerned about loss of service. But I think if we have an approach that regulates safe supply for food service, provides the opportunity, particularly when we do have these fantastic sporting carnivals or tourism events that bring people from out of town and that are located perhaps a long way from any food outlets, provides an opportunity to keep people watered and fed. I think it also provides some opportunities in some of our industrial areas, again, where we don't have nearby food options. But most importantly, I think if we're looking at the opportunities to perhaps provide an evening economy and have nightlife opportunities, most of the places in Orange close at 9 o'clock and you can't get much to eat. We have the opportunity to look at mobile food vending vehicles which perhaps meet that demand. It perhaps encourages Orange to be maybe not 24/7, we've heard that's not great, but perhaps a later economy in appropriate parts of town under a policy and under an approvals process which provides that security for the entrepreneurs who want to run food vans, but also the security for our commercial entities paying market rents here in town.
Thank you. Councillor Kidd.
I support the recommendation because I think it is very, very important that we also consider the people that invested a lot of money and have to go through all sorts of hoops to set up a food business or any coffee through to food. We have to think about what they have to go through. So I think there should be rules and regulations. I know the one that was set up on the weekend, Chinaman's Bend. I don't now think of Chinaman's going out of town, the layoff, rest area, people to pull up right bang in the middle of Chinaman's Bend. I will guarantee you that that wasn't approved. The RMS wouldn't have allowed it for a start, but it was just there. Now, okay, to provide the coffee. But what would have happened if there was an accident there? Number two, control of, you know, the food. We go around and inspect regularly the outlets, safety rules and regulations. I think vans getting around should go under the same scrutiny regularly. Places around here for cleanliness, you know, you've got to have stainless steel counters and all the bits and pieces that you actually go through. I agree with Councillor McRae on one of those. I lived through an era because I'm older. Had some of these things around Orange, and they were the biggest things at night time for a blue. It was Davo's Diner. That was the famous one in Summer Street. If you wanted the blue, you hit there after 9 o'clock and you get through to about 3. Go up there and you can guarantee you could have a fight. Whether you wanted one or not, you were in one.
How'd you go?
I copped a lot of items, I can tell, before I was waiting for a feed, I went home. So that was Davo's Diner. Then they moved it up. 2 shops. That was going to change things. There was a better light there. Encouraged it. You could see the fights. Then I remember one down the bottom end of the street, moved into Peasy Street for a while. Well, the same thing happened there. So I think you've got to be very, very careful. People will even tell you in Sydney that times have changed with young. Harry the Wheels in Sydney, great, iconic building, gets late at night. There, but have a look what the Harry the Wheels have to have after 8 o'clock. Security. They have to pay for security to be around Harry the Wheels in case they knock the caravan off, get into blues. There's a lot of things to consider about mobile food things that.
Thank you, Councillor Kidd. Councillor Munro.
Yeah, look, thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I agree with those sentiments wholeheartedly. I as a ex-retailer in this town, understand exactly what goes into building a retail business. I know the HACCP requirements that so stringently put on food outlets in this town and everywhere else in South Wales, Australia. I do think that there need to be limited. These vans, people, whatever they might be, have to be limited and very, very much scrutinised by how they product and where that comes from. Is it their home that they prepare the food? Is it HACCP approved? All those things. And I know council staff will be very diligent in that way, but I do think to have a number of these outlets, good idea, but they need to be scrutinised. They can't be just someone from another place to come here that we don't know and we haven't done the appropriate HACCP regulation tests or have had opportunity as councils, health inspectors to actually have a look at that van and assess the fact that it is clean and it is done in an appropriate manner. I really do think that we should have a number that can be determined by council staff in the area here that can be used as for certain events and certain time slots. If you've got a great big football do on and you want to bring a whole circus in, that's fine, but they're all assessed on their health standards. I think that's important. But to have, like I remember 18 years ago, there was a hot dog stand in Robinson Park here, which I sold the hot dogs, and you know she closed because of that reason: blues, drugs, and rock and roll. But you know the end result is we really need to have a stringent number of assessed and properly scrutinised vendors. I would totally agree with that, but not open slather. I think we should really look at that, and the times that they are in service for the public. It's different when the shops are shut and there's some function or a do that we might be able to have a van to service people late at night or whatever it might be, but taken away from the people that are spending money on rents. You don't want a coffee van sitting outside your coffee shop. So I would expect that council staff would very much regulate, scrutinise that too, because you know, as a retailer, you know, you put your heart into your premises, and that's your little world. A vendor to come in and just steal your trade, heartening and heartbreaking. At the end of the day, you go.
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with certain things that Councillor Kidd said there as regards to the accidents and the insurance and the control of food safety and all the other issues and security. But the biggest thing we must look at here is, and I hope when the report does address the issue of what the actual costs are going to provide these actually people to running these business houses. You've got people in business all over Orange, and more so the CBD, who are paying a third more in rates than anywhere else, and you're setting up these type of things and they're going out and taking business away from these people here. And we're hearing and seeing shops close nearly at a rate of one a month, or probably a lot better than that at the moment. I know one that closed last week and those type of things there. So we have to make sure that these businesses aren't taking away. You've got places like the 7-Elevens that are opening. You've got the Alpine store. You've got Jack's Mini Market. You've got all these other stores that are still surviving. Perry Oval, they're providing business houses there, and that's where these people are taking business from. You see them set up everywhere. You see them on Woodward Street. You see them on at the railway station. You see them anywhere and everywhere. But are they paying the same due as what the people who are paying rates and contributing to our community and the welfare of our community and the safeties of our community? So I think I'll be looking forward to seeing a good report come back, which is make things on a level playing field for everyone.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question. So these mobile vendors will get some sort of licence or some sort of approval, correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So basically it's one in, all in. So if we've got operators having to meet the rules, I think these vendors should meet the rules, and if they don't, close down.
Just asked a question. Don't mind?
Yep.
I've always had a concern, and people have asked me this. It relates back to meat. And interesting, the rules and regulations and how tough they are on butchers. They can't have, the butchers' blocks anymore, where they used to cut the meat up. It's got to be all stainless steel. But you can go to a park at a market day, buy rabbits out of a box, deer out of a box, lamb out of a box, beef cuts out of a box. So are there any rules on them?
Oh, yeah. I'm the expert.
Oh, keep it brief.
Yes, you do. That's
short somewhere.
Short one.
Yes, there is.
Thank you. All right. Councillor Whitten.
Should do that more often, Mr. Chair. Going on Councillor Duffy, where he was saying that it does affect those businesses who are static, but it has the reverse as well. We do have itinerants that have had vans who have been so successful that they've actually put shops in the main street, and that's the Vietnamese restaurant, right? So it has a both ways, right? Many of us that travel to Sydney and see these itinerants will also know that they have restaurants in the CBD of Sydney as well. What they do is they cover both markets. I'm not saying that's feasible for everybody and affordable for everybody, but you'll find that once they become popular, they will go into static environments as well.
Thank you, and I'm sure with all our, Councillor Taylor.
Just quickly, Mr. Chairman, look, by all means, let's develop a policy. It's a fact of life. The report indicates that clearly, that all local government areas, it's an issue that all local government areas now have to deal with. So you put the policy in place, and that's the way it is. But I mean, I know one of the operators, and it's not a blanket and say, look, they don't pay rates, they don't do this, they don't do. One I know, he's in Orange, he's family in Orange, raised that family, or he so, you know, they're business people, but they've got to live by rules, got to have rules in place for them, and that's fair enough. But just to blanket say that they're all blow-ins and they all do the irresponsible thing, I think that's totally untrue. So, and there are local people who are operating as what we deem as itinerants, but they are local business. They do back into our community. Develop a responsible one, which gives them also an opportunity like any other business. And a lot of money's been spent by some of them. So they're not fly-by-nighters. So, you know, I think we need. Times are changing, and we need.
Thank you. I noticed the General Manager's been taking copious notes, and all the comments tonight will help him develop his comprehensive local approvals policy. All those in favour? Against? Carried. That brings the Planning and Development meeting to a close at 8:45. That's been adjusted for daylight savings. Yes. Councillor Whitten to conduct the Employment Economic Development Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I'll open the Orange City Council's Employment and Economic Development Policy Committee, 8:46. 5, 4. Actually, it'd be quarter to 10 now. We'd be all in bed. Normally, wouldn't we?
Okay.
10 o'clock. 1.1, declarations of pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, less than significant non-pecuniary interests.
Wrong watch.
Being none, item 2 is 2.1 minutes of the economic development. It's been moved by the Mayor, seconded by Councillor Munro. Any discussion on the minutes? I'll take this opportunity to thank the Mayor for standing in for me at this particular meeting, as I was unable to attend because I was chasing animals around after that storm. I'll put all those. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? It's carried, and I'll close the meeting at almost 10 to 9.
That's a beauty.
That's a new record for you.
Councillor Romano up to do the infrastructure and policy.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten, and I'll open the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting at 8:47. Declarations of interest. Does any councillor have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, or less than a significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? Answer is no. Move on to section 2, item 2.1.
Moved.
Minutes of the Airport Community meeting of the 28th of February. Moved by Councillor Hidd, seconded Councillor Nugent. Any discussion on this item?
Just one there. You've got down here matters arising. It says concerns expressed. It's got the Rex Council conflict. That in relation to.
What page is that on?
8.
I think just through the chair, if I may, there may be a perception there rather than a reality. We met with Rex in Sydney last week to run through some issues, and everything was pretty well amicable at that meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Kidd. Move on to item 2.2. Yeah, I'll put that to the vote. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Move on to item 2.2, minutes of the Traffic Committee meeting on the 13th of March. We have a recommendation on page 9.
Happy to move it, Mr Chairman.
Second it, Mr
Councillor
Chairman.
Duffy, seconded by Councillor Munro. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr Chairman, page 32, I noticed the Traffic Committee discussed the Phillip Street Children's Crossing there. And I noticed the recommendation said that they have some education on that. Now, let me tell you, I don't know what type of education we're going to actually need for up there. Because I've been in two situations where I've been seeing where staff and everyone else and his man, his cat and his dog has been up at James Sheehan, and you're talking about kids that are year 10, 11 and 12 and 9, and they are sensible kids and you don't see any issues. But you go up there to Phillip Street, cross in front of the school, you think, God, you've got a few teachers sitting around there, and you go down to the roundabout and you see kids running straight across the roundabout, sitting in the middle, and then making another dash the other side. And that, to me, I just find it strange that the education of that there, they just sort of, it appears as though they just brush it away a little bit.
Any further comments on?
No. I'm not commenting on that issue. I was just looking at 3.12 on page 14, traffic issues 102 Isley Road. Just looking at the recommendation that council does not do this, that council does not install a barrier, and that council does not remove the current no parking arrangement. The residents concerned, who expressed their concerns, certainly has some genuine concerns. I just wonder, is there anything that we can do rather than not do in order to address these concerns? And might I say, while I'm talking, that we had a long discussion, I think, at Lucknow about having the papers from these community committees part of the council papers, and I've actually found it. Have to say, I found it quite useful having the papers here. So, I'm kind of glad we went down that track.
Your response from?
Just with, sorry,
through the chair, if I may, I'm happy to have a chat with Councillor Nugent after the meeting and find out what the specific concerns are. In regard to vehicles travelling over the Mountable roundabout, some vehicles will need to travel over the Mountable roundabout to actually cross it. The other items, I don't see an issue around having further discussion on them.
Can I just make a comment on that number 2? The council does not install by Jingo. No way in the wide world, under any circumstances, put a barrier on top of it. The whole idea of that roundabout there, similar to the roundabout up here, that's been hugely successful because what can happen is it's a lot easier for larger vehicles to get around, including buses. They are a lot more safe. If something does go wrong, you can veer off and go across them. If something goes wrong on these roundabouts that are up in the air, well, you go crashing straight into it. And the whole idea of that design is to give you better traffic movement and better, I suppose, safety outcomes. I think in an explanation to the person at Road, I go out that way a fair bit since it's been open, and I haven't seen. Actually, I take that back. I did see 2 days ago, just a truck, not a big truck, just loaded with a few cattle coming down there and going around the corner, had to run their wheels over the things, worked perfectly.
Councillor Kidd, any further discussion?
Yeah, sorry, just to clarify, I certainly wasn't advocating putting a barrier on top of the roundabout. I understand the reasons for not having one there. I suppose, in terms of a process here, we've got a resident who's taken the time to express her concerns in a number of different areas. And I just wonder, so it goes to the Traffic Committee, the Traffic Committee decides not to do anything, effectively what the recommendation is at 3.12. So then what do we go back to the resident and say, sorry, we're not going to do anything? Like, I just wonder whether we can put a discussion with the about what is there anything possible?
Yeah, I see your point. Yeah, I think we could probably do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Through the chair, as I said, I don't have any issue having further discussions in regards to points 1 and 3.
Okay, is there any further discussion, Councillor Turner?
Partly answer those concerns. As we're aware, there's a roundabout has gone into that intersection, and legally you can't park within so many metres of a roundabout. And unfortunately, this house was within that area. So there's very little we can do, unfortunately, and I don't know who the resident is, whether they're old or elderly or whatever, and it possibly is a inconvenience for them, but there's very little we can do because of the limitations of parking within a certain distance of a roundabout. And those are New South Wales laws, not just Orange City Council.
Yeah, I suppose I wonder whether that can be explained to the resident, what the process is to.
Any further discussion, councillors? If not, I'll move the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. I'd just like to, Mr. Stiles would like to ask some questions here.
On part 2 of the recommendation, 9, part 2 of 2.2, it suggests that council determines number of recommendations. Okay, to understand the moving of that and the way it was moved. Right.
All in favour of that? Does everybody understand that that question? Page 9, item 2.2. All good? Section 3, item 3.1, current works. The recommendation on page 131.
Move it, Mr. Chairman.
I have a move by Councillor Duffy, seconded Councillor Munro. Any discussion? Councillor Duffy.
My discussion, I go right to the back on page 137, and I noticed the vast increase of the people by using the airport. That's actually good news, and I don't know whether it's I don't know which one they are. I mean, whether Rex has increased or whether corporate has increased or what the reasons are. But maybe we can be able to know.
It's very good. Anything else, councillors? Any other items?
Yeah, just one. It's great on page 135. That raw water transfers. That's good information to have in there. And a few people requested that, and it's good, from bores, stormwater, Macquarie River, so we know.
Thanks, Councillor Kidd. Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I had a few questions here. There's a discussion on page 133 about the Forest Road upgrade and the 30 trees that were cut down to make way for that. I'm interested in the comment that under the accepted scientific committee guidelines, they are not really critical to the survival of superb parrots. Maybe a little bit critical to the survival of superb parrots. But the last point, staff are also looking at proposed replantings in the area once the project is finished. Can we have a time frame of when that might be, when those replantings might occur, and what area those replantings would occur?
We'd certainly look at through the chair, if I may. We'd certainly look at the works after the works are completed in September, October of this year, and then take advice on when it's best to actually plant those trees to ensure their growth.
Where are they likely to be
Yeah, on the western side of Forest Road.
That would be good. Sorry.
On the western. Yeah, through the chair, on the western side of Forest Road.
On the western side. Second question, in terms of the raw water transfers, which I also found very useful. The figures kind of in the total column don't make sense to me. The total for 2018 for bore, stormwater and Macquarie River seem to be a total of the first first for the 3 months, December, January, February. But the total, for the total, is actually a total for the whole year.
That's, calendar year. Sorry, not calendar year, financial year to date totals.
Oh, that's financial year to date.
Yes.
So does that imply that for bores and stormwater and Quarry River, there has been no transfers prior to December in the financial year?
No, hang on.
Fast forward a point from is December. I think you'll find going back to the current works reports prior to December. Have it. So I think you'll find the period is from December.
Yeah, probably.
I asked for that, and that was from December.
We've certainly had transfers from bore, harvesting, and it's from a start point.
Okay, so the figure for the total of 2018, 407.52, that's since the start of financial year.
3 months prior, don't add up to the 407.
Oh.
407's for 17-18. We've estimated that prior to when we started providing it in this.
Oh, okay. So it's an estimate. Right.
You've got further questions, Councillor Nugent?
Sorry, just one other request, I suppose. In relation to water consumption, the daily water consumption, is it possible to have we've got an average per person per day. Is it possible also to have a total usage per day, like for the whole of the city?
Multiplied by all the residents.
Yeah, pretty
Is
good.
it possible?
Yes, absolutely.
Leave here and multiply it.
That's all you got to do.
The other way?
Thank you. Councillor
Just-
Kidd.
And look, I got thousands of call over the trees. Sometimes you have to remove trees. And can I just make this comment about connectivity and the superb parrots? On the western side of where we're doing all the road works, there is an incredible amount of natural bushland from where the tank is, up from James Sheen High School, right through the TAFE. I planted most of them, I can tell you. It's through there.
Right.
It connects up with the research station, goes right up past the research station. All the work that council did at the back of Bloomfield Bloomfield Hospital, I should say, where all the nesting boxes are. So the decision in this one was, what's the priority? The priority in this case is the safety of motorists moving up there. It's interesting having a look at some of those trees. They didn't have hollows in them. Trees were about to come down and nobody, I still haven't got anyone that is seen as a superb parrot in any of those trees. But the thing that was run was that this was going to affect all this great work and money that council's invested and support of various environmental groups in Norwich. Not true. We've got to use the whole picture and what has actually been done. And in this case, on the side, off the road, there's an incredible belt, and I encourage people when they're going home, Councillor Prepotero would know better than probably anyone, he'd go up that road a fair bit, have a look on the western side. Heaven forbid, right through there, right up to the research station, back of Nublar going down that way. But have a look at the amount of trees that are actually on Bloomfield itself. Now, there's not many on Bradman Oval for a very good reason. The soccer games.
You can organise that.
Right? But we've still got trees on the outside. And, you know, that's a sporting field. But the beauty of that, you don't have to have lots of trees on Bloomfield. A field, a hockey field.
Thank you, Councillor Kidd. Councillor Taylor.
Mr. Chairman, I'll agree with Councillor Kidd as far as this one's concerned. And I mean, I had people speak to me about the trees and so forth. I mean, overwhelmingly, and we in the previous council had poor old Councillor Duffy was chasing ambulances at nauseam, reporting the condition about how bad it was, the roads, and it was inducing heart attacks. It's all sorts of problems it caused, inducing heart attacks. People, yeah, I mean, it was way that was, and over the years that has been one of the major problems with the roads in this was that access, particularly since 2011, since that hospital went there. Regional New South Wales, bar none. I mean, and the access there through Forest Road, appalling. Then we said we're size and toll, we were not, and I was in for occupying that chair of yours, Mr. Chair. They were then criticised we're not doing it quick enough, and we said hold your horses, we've got it into the state government. So instead of spending $3 million of ratepayers' funds, we waited and we were successful and got 3.1 million from this, or 2.2 million from the state government to fix it. It's now going to be completely hot mixed. It's going to be curb and gutter right to the hospital. There's going to be parking down the bottom. Three, and then I think it's his total cost. I think we're looking at 3.7 or whatever it is from that. But that was vital. As far as number one project as far as road reconstructions in. Now the trees were assessed. No one went in with go abandon and just knocked the trees over. It was assessed in a logical way, which was for overall the benefit of the community, which will be that road when complete. Now, you can only do what you can, and you can only provide what you can. Save the ratepayers significant money for getting the state government funding. We're going to put a road in there which will be equal to the quality of the road going up the hill, a magnificent road in, to, like I say, the best hospital in regional New South Wales. A few trees have gone by the wayside, so be it, Mr. Chairman. That's the way it is, and that's the way it has been. And we'll all reap the benefits when that road is completed.
Any further discussion? Councillor Turner.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And regarding the raw water transfers on page 135 and the bores include 2 at Clifton Grove and 1 at the showground. Could you inform me how that water is transferred to Suma Park? Pipe or what?
Yeah, pipe and pump and pipe.
There is a separate pipe. I know we get water pumped out to Clifton Grove, but there is 2 lines. Following much, like pretty much parallel, or?
We can do it before the meter.
I've already got a very...
The raw water line, yeah.
So there is a separate line, right?
There's a separate raw water line, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Discussion, councillors.
Chairman, I'll just go briefly. There's 2 issues on
I'll take I'll come back to you, Councillor Whitten. I thought I saw him get up first. No, yep, Councillor Whitten. He's told you to sit down.
I should let you up because you're older than me. Sorry, Councillor Duff.
Have some respect. Yes.
Should have been more courteous. Mine's a question through you, Mr. Chairman. The early part of this new council, council had a motion on the books to have a report come back to us about our own hot mix plant. Wondering where we're up to. Must be a big report.
Negotiating with a company that produces asphalt and bitumen. Are interested in coming to town. That's still in a state of discussion and them sorting out. That fail will move on to including the rate option.
Thank you.
Okay.
Manager, I appreciate that.
Just on that, Mr. Chairman.
Well, Councillor.
Let me go.
I haven't even had a crack yet.
What Councillor Whitten was saying.
Okay, go ahead.
Point. At some stage, can we just get a brief report what we've rolled out in the last 5 years in hot mix in this city?
Yes.
Like, no, not tonnage. No, I'm not interested in tonnage. I want to know the streets. Because it really is starting to make a marked difference around town. When you're driving about, the amount of streets now that are being hot mixed, completely done, almost maintenance free. They won't be maintenance free, obviously, for their life of them, but for a long time. Yep. And it really has. And I've had a lot of people, and I know that we've pushed it for a long time, and a lot of people are starting now to comment on how the road's being repaired and fixed with the hot mix. It's really making a big difference to this city. So I think it'd be just interesting to see the streets named from corner to corner, or whatever it is that we have done in, say, 5 years, because I really think people are starting to notice.
Thank you. I'll put the motion.
Is it okay now?
I can't get rid
Thank
of
you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for noticing that I was here.
Councillor Duffy, go ahead.
I just want to go back a little bit to Forest Road. I just want to say I would congratulate Councillor Kidd for saying the western side, also the back of Bloomfield, and also the back of the hospital. The back of the hospital area, for all the greenies that are around, was something that was taken into account when we go into this week when we go to Tidy Towns Championship, which one of the judges spent a lot of time out there looking at where the birds were nesting, given the long stick to have a look and see what eggs are in there, whatever the case may be. And they were very impressive, and the council have done a fantastic job with that. And I must commend our staff member in Roger Smith. He's very passionate about it and does an exceptional good job. But the only problem with Forest Road was those trees should have been knocked down 7 years ago. Not this year, it should have been 7 years ago.
Yeah, Councillor Duffy, just maintain your,
should have been gone 7 years ago. But I want to go to Cargo Road. I noticed the signs out there have now moved Cargo Road start delayed, and I think they've got the 16th to the 4th on them. We're not expecting another to go to the 20th or the 5th or anything like that. We want to see start happening on Cargo Road.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yep. I will use the word absolutely.
Councillor Nugent, I expect you to answer. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Chair. As one of the greenies that are around,
I'm one.
I'd just like to, I'd actually like to also commend the staff who did respond very well when calls came in expressing concern about the trees being cut down, and there were efforts made, and it seems successfully, to save a number of trees that had been previously marked for removal. So I'd like to say thank you to the staff for those efforts.
I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Now I'd like to call on Councillor Hamling for the Sports and Recreation Policy Committee.
I'll open the Sport and Recreation Policy Committee at 9:12. Any declarations of interest or pecuniary interests? I see none. We'll move on to items 2.1, minutes of the Australia Day Community, moved by Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor Nugent. Councillor Duffy,
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Surprise me and say something.
I just want to commend you on your suggestion some time ago as regards to look at the relocation of Australia Day down here to Robertson Park and closing Byng Street and utilising the forecourts of the thing down here. I'm just wondering whether the committee will look at that situation.
We'll take it into consideration, I'm sure.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Hamley, we have looked into it, and as the minutes say, we are strongly against moving it from Cook Park. One of the main reasons is that Cook Park is totally fenced as far as young children that run around because of all the children's rides, etc., etc. That was one of the main reasons. Another reason was that the amount of trees in Cook Park compared to Robertson Park, there's a lot more shade if the day happens to be very hot. So the Australia Day Committee are quite strongly against moving it from Cook Park. We think everyone has accepted it. Everyone knows it's there. We also take into account the committee. They're there from 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. You to spread the Australia Day celebrations out across Byng Street and into the North Court, etc., etc. You would need a lot more volunteers, or you would need to employ council staff at a considerable cost, and people wouldn't quite know where everything is. At the moment in Cook Park, everyone knows where the fun rides are, everyone knows where the where the rotunda is, and I haven't heard anyone in the general public convey a message that they would like it moved out of Cook Park.
It was just an idea, Councillor Turner, but you've knocked it on the head, so that's fine. Any other comments? I'll put the minutes. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. We'll move on to item 2.2, which is the minutes of the Orange Show.
Minutes.
By Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Nugent. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the minutes. All those in favour say aye. Carried. We'll move on to general reports, 3.1, and that's the formation
the
of a...
recommendation as printed.
Moved by Councillor Whitten. I have a seconder.
Where's the recommendation?
3.1, it's on page 21.
Yeah, I got it.
Moved by Councillor Whitten, seconder.
I'll second for discussion.
Seconded by Councillor McRae.
Oh,
Kid?
well, look, I'll speak against the recommendation as it is. I know as a council we moved to form one club, and I agree with that totally. The reason for that was being years and years of discontent, let's put it that way, down there. No, let's be honest, fighting between various groups. And I believe at the end of the day it wasn't in the best interest of the council. All we had was coming back to council continually. It was friction. And it's no good saying that there wasn't, because there was. I respect everyone involved in swim, wife and my many years. Now, and I think we have important role to play as a council in having facilities for people to learn to swim. But I think after lots and lots of years of discussions, I think we made the right motion to form one club. The only part of this whole report that I'm against, if I may, like the Randwick model, right? Form one club. I like the idea of getting a head coach. What I don't like in the option that's put us up to here, you've appointed someone. I think for accountability and transparency, I was picked up on earlier this year, we should advertise that position. That position is open to anyone to apply. You put together selection panel, right expertise and skill set on it, to select somebody. At this stage, what's recommended in here is coach from one of the groups who I see from that same group. Am I reading that right? Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't think that's fair and equitable. The first thing, forming one club. Second part should be council, staff, together an advertisement, junction, people with expertise in this area, what skills, etc., that you're looking for, and that's the way that you select.
So you're suggesting, Mr. Mayor, there's a 0.3?
Yeah, probably would that be the best? Yeah.
I'm happy to accept that as the mover if you're moving that way.
Yeah, I'll move that way. It's 0.3 that, yeah, that a bit of a coach or head coach, whatever you want, the exact position. There's who I see positions to be advertised. Obviously, they've got to be from within Orange, you know, the bits and pieces that go with it, and a committee put together, a selection committee put together with the appropriate skills, select those persons. Now, that may be the same persons that are suggesting here, I don't know, but it's got to be very open, transparent.
And they would be volunteers, not a paid coaching position. Yeah. Councillor McRae.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I'll speak against that amendment. I think that would be jumping the gun a bit. I guess my question really, recommendation 1 is to acknowledge the support of 2 groups. Recommendation 2 says to progress the establishment. Now, we heard from the speaker earlier this evening that there are some concerns about the detail around how it progresses. So I guess my question is, does that second recommendation mean that there will be ongoing consultation, or is it implementing a particular model, or is there still the opportunity to discuss some of those issues which were raised, including clarifying, who's who gets appointed by who and how? I think more detail on the financial implications, whether that's the assets of the existing clubs, as well as the impact on ratepayers in terms of, relevant costs. But I think I'd also be very interested in seeing more detail on what the exact benefits are to the swimmers and the users of the facility, but also, I guess, how it impacts on that use of facility more broadly. So is that part of what progress the establishment means?
I'll ask the Director.
And the timeframes as well, that's been clarified.
Wanda?
Through you, Mr Chair, if I may, the few things in the report. So first of all, unable to form a new club without one club. You are unable to form a new club. So it has to be Jets or it has to be City, both. That's the first step. We can't move forward without that happening. I've taken information, and the same information has been provided to City and the same information has been provided. Two groups happy with that information. Voluntary run. Base doesn't say. Same swim, it's a volunteer run swim club. Any of us that have been associated with clubs, whatever their form, mums and dads volunteering their time at a club for the benefit of all the users. A lot of work in that, a lot of giving up personal. That's the basis of the club. Just that this is how it should be run, because it should be up to the club to decide. So we heard tonight some concern about lane hire. Lane hire currently is $40,000. That's based on clubs' hire of the lanes to voluntary based. Does change those lanes. One club coordinating how will those lanes. That will create efficiency or otherwise. No Jets support it. I know. So that's the advantage of having one swim. One lot of use, a lot of coordination. It's difficult in coordinating and across groups and how you manage swimmers and how they progress from learn to swim and how they're graded and those groups look like. No one precluded from joining the swim club. Handicap new lanes. A couple other points. Council resolution said that if it was formed, it would be the only Category 2 use. Policy in place, it says this is what the lane allocation is to Category 1 community. Category 3 is everyone else, so that's what lanes are left over at the end. Two clubs in winter right now, Category 2 users, they get the lion's share of the available lanes for swimming. Orange District Swim Club gets what's left over. That's a lot. Those kids are getting disadvantaged because they're part of a Category 3 user. Access to them. Those kids live in Orange, some of those kids don't. That's the same for all the clubs. All the clubs have got swim. 5% of others, but they all do. So those kids are so this isn't about bickering. This is the most efficient use. The thing to do is to would solve the problem. But what we have is a limited resource. Best way to resolve it. There is an opportunity for everyone to be involved in how that club's established. It provides for roles. The report says this is what the swimming director would do. Now there's head coach. It's just what that role does is detailed in the report. What I'm trying to do is move this forward. This is a mess. Well, I can do that. Big deal for a club. What that would involve. Manly folded.
Don't matter, Manly folded. Just a question. It was a resolution of council.
Yep.
This is a way that we went. This is actually, I don't want to go back again, square one, go through all the arguments and who owns what and who's got what. We've done that so many times. This was a resolution that was supported unanimously. Get on with it. Only thing, that, as I said, with those questions, I know that we looked at, and I know all the questions have been asked before, and a lot of angst, other people, but finally agreed that this was the way. Do not want to see us go backwards. And this is a step forward, a way forward. Will there be some people that have their nose out of joint for a while? Well, people had their noses out of joint in Orange when they formed a second rugby club. Been fantastic for Orange, hasn't it, Jason?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Best club in town.
But everyone has their personal things. I believe this is best for Orange. This is best for kids that want to learn to swim, who may want to go on further with their swimming and compete, local, regional or in state or whatever it may be. But it opens up. I know at the moment, if you're not a member of one of those two clubs, it's a bit to get in, so forth. I think this way is a way of taking out a lot of that possible conflict that can occur in any club. In swim clubs, this happens in football clubs, it happens in councils. But I've been through this debate for so many years, and that often. I think on the financial side of things, yeah, all of those things have got to, operational things have got to be going through, so it's fair and equitable, again, as we do it, but this is the solution, and I'll be so disappointed if we go back to square one. And as I said, thinking the answer of fair and equity is just simple, whatever you want to call those positions.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I couldn't agree with the Mayor more on this. Again, we go back through time, and this issue, anyone who went through the issue when the clubs were virtually at war would never want to do it. I got in the middle of it, and I knew about it, and and we're going back years. And the issues, as the director has indicated, is down to the fact that we don't have enough lanes for two. The thing I've got to implore councillors tonight here, and from someone who's been involved with this, like day one, this report here tonight you're considering hasn't been a report like we get from time to time where we ask staff and 2 weeks later they give us a report. This has been measured, it has been done with logic, it has been done with infinite amounts of consultation, and it has come to this agreement, or this is the model that this vote is not about what you believe or someone has got in here and told you. This is what we need to do. We need to do this. We need to support the staff on this report. Because you don't, and I'm telling you, you don't want to go back to where we've been with this issue. I agree with the Mayor. There is nothing that we should do here tonight to jeopardise putting this through here tonight. And if there's got to be that minor adjustment about the appointment or whatever of of the head coach or whatever it may be, so be it, but don't play around with the report as a whole. Because if you've just come into this debate and believe that you can reinvent the wheel, I'm telling you, you can't. Been successive staff that have been in this council, been and gone, that have this issue has defeated. Been too big for. Couldn't have got to the point we're at now without the cooperation of the clubs. And there's been, there might have been different faces, there might have been different people involved as far as the negotiations. The same organisations were there being represented from day one. As the Mayor indicated, there will be people, there will always be people who won't be happy about the model we present. But this is a classic example of you're not going to please everyone for the better good of the entire swimming community in this. And we have to do something, as Mr. Maunder has indicated, we can't build another pool. That's not possible. So what we have to do is we have to work with what we've got. And I don't know how many times it's been back, this issue. It's never been in front of council, but it's been back to full council. We finally have a resolution here. Don't squander this chance, please. I beg you. And look, it has to take into account all the kids, you know, skilled kids, the kids that the elite swimmers in the city. Also got to look at the allocations for the kids from all parts of the city that at all levels of swimming capability. What's here, it won't be perfect, not be perfect, and not everyone will be happy. But I tell you what, it hasn't just fallen down in front of you tonight. It's come from years of hard work by a lot of people.
Councillor Miletto.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Hemling. I agree with the changes proposed by Mayor Kidd. I've got, and we speak about child involvement in the sport, and the question I have to the director is, whilst forming this new club, are the members required to, are those participants required to be members of Swimming New South Wales?
Through Mr. Chair, yes, they will be. Swimming New South Wales. It goes to insurance. And
the reason I asked the question is because my understanding that those, as a result of that, those individual children will be required to pay a fee to Swimming New South Wales of $120 for the first child.
On the numbers, I didn't think it was any.
That is correct. So I guess where I'm coming from, 60 or 120, but I guess the question is it, and I agree with your changes. I agree with the Randwick model or whatever else we're trying to do to it. I'm just concerned that you're going to preclude kids whose parents aren't in a position to be able to afford to send their children or be part of that club. That's my only concern, is from a financial position.
Can I just make a comment too? The government rebate is available for swimming.
I understand that, and then a lot of those rebates are taken up by another sport, which is soccer, rugby union. It's a $100 rebate. You are correct.
Yep.
But it's a one-off per child. But depending.
But that's the choice of the family to see which avenue of sport their child wants to participate in.
Understand.
Correct.
Yes.
Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's been covered by the Mayor and Councillor Taylor, who are councillors that have been here, dealt with this issue in the past. And the thing that we've got to consider here as a council tonight is that we were forced into this decision. Forced into this decision because the clubs couldn't. We had to make a decision as the owner, the overseer of that pool, for all of the community. What was the best way to go for the children of those clubs? And that's when we made the decision, based on recommendations from the General Manager and Directors of the time and Swimming New South Wales, that the model that was used in other councils was this model. This is how they overcame those issues. And the issues is for the simple reason that the clubs work together at that time. So the pool was an outdoor pool to have the issue that I'm aware of. But now we have an indoor pool, a great pool, and it's suffering from that success. But that pool belongs to all of the community. And it's been mentioned here tonight, it's just not big enough. And that's a fact of life. So again, we need to support this model because this is what we determined as the best way forward after months, probably 4 negotiations that came, which were very stressful for all concerned. Councillors, staff, the clubs, ultimately the members who are the children of those clubs.
Councillor Munro.
I
got a short one.
I endorse the sentiments that have just been put. I also endorse the Mayor's third requirement on the recommendation. I think it's very, very important that we have a coach that is appointed by on his or her merits as a professional or somebody that can really add to our club and the development of the club and the kids, and also somebody that can facilitate organisation within the club as far as families and mums and dads that are actually trying their hardest and putting their life on hold for their kids' sport to try and make a better club of it. So what I see is we go down this way and we form one club, have a coach appointed with merit, with his through his or her attributes. You know, you never know, we might get a professional swimmer that wants to move to Orange, ex-swimmer, whatever. It could be, yeah. Whatever. But the thing is, though, I think it is important to appoint a coach on merit and have a proper selection process for that and advertise it. I think it is very important that the swimming community know that Orange is open for a coach to maybe pop up a very good outcome for Orange.
Yeah, I might just ask a question first, Councillor. The coach will be not appointed by council; it'll be appointed by the committee of the new club that's formed. So, and it's a volunteer role. We're not talking about. Yeah, I just want to make that point. Yeah. Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. One of the newer councillors who've been involved in the history of this. I don't want to sort of delay it or speak against it, but I also want to understand exactly what it is that I'm voting for. So, in relation to, and I appreciate the various councillors providing background on this. That's been very useful discussion. But just in relation to the City of Orange Swim Club, what options that, like they've indicated that they're not willing to commit to join the new club. What options does that club have? Do they have to golf? They're not going to be a Category 2 club? Is that my understanding correct there?
Through you, Mr. Resolution of council. That would be the that by default would make all other users, including City of Orange. So that is that the lane allocation is based on what category use. So kids through available lane space. Unless they coach somewhere else, unless wanted to wind up. Heard also a couple of times tonight about financials. What happens to the clubs if they decide to wind up is governed by their constitution. They will say, well, if there's an excess of funds, if that's $30,000, their constitution will tell them what they need. I don't really see that as a matter. I would need to set its fees for kids. I would need to work out all those fine details.
Thank you. Okay, I might, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you,
Price.
Mr. Chairman. It is a very difficult situation. I agree with Councillor Whitten when he says it's our facility. It's something we have to work with. I would assume that this new club will be registered under the model rules of the Department of Fair Trading. Gives it the grunt of its membership. But I would imagine sometime years ago there would have been one club originally. They all split it off in different directions and those type of things there. So I'm, as Councillor Whitten said, we've been forced into this situation there, and I tend to agree with it. But I'm very concerned about the questions that have been asked and they haven't been answered. And I'm also very concerned of why has it taken us well over 12 months to bring this thing to a head when we've got kids running around wanting to go to training and wanting to be all those type of things there. They are my concerns there. Listen, let me tell you, I know nothing about swimming because I can't swim an inch. I do have a problem with...
I wish you would have known that.
Taking you to the beach.
Or that Orange takes pride in local and Windsor and those type of things there, not getting the opportunity to go that way. If this is a way of doing it and it works, we've achieved something. But I'm prepared to back this and see how it goes. But I do think that we do need to keep having roundtable discussions with people to allay some fears and trying to work through some issues. I think that's extremely important because I know from other councillors that were used to be in this room, their main concern was, and I think they could swim as far as what I was, that the children out there, the learn to swim people did, and the ones that want to improve themselves through coaching, did get the opportunity to have use of our facility.
Ask a question, please, Mr. Chair.
Cool.
How we propose to good result if we don't have some input from council as far as who the coach is on merit. To be fair, as the Mayor put up a while ago, equitable, if clubs pick the coach, be on merit, or would it be on for some other reason? Wonder if we should have some input into that, or is that being looked at? Just think if somebody comes up with a great, fantastic this and that and the other, get passed over because what his friend or whatever third person, is that what we want, or do we? My question is, how do we ascertain best date for the job if they put up for the?
Would it be that there'd be members from each swimming club on that selection process?
Yep.
So there couldn't be.
They put it back. Someone that wasn't suitable, they wouldn't put them in.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Mr. Chair, I'd suggest it'd be a matter for the club to resolve.
Exactly.
Clubs operate, how they pick their vice president, how the head coach. It's not a head coach role.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chairman. Point of clarification. I understand that we're going to the committee, whatever it is going to select a swimming coach, but with horses and other sports and things like that, you do have preferred coaches, or another person goes to another coach and exceeds or goes worse, or whatever the case may be. How's that situation handled under this?
It's substitution.
Let me tell you, councillors, we are responsible for the overall operations of this council.
Coaches can join the club. Who wants to join?
Chairman, I move that motion be put.
Have a seconder?
Yes, second.
Okay. All those in favour say aye. I'll put the motion on page
It's 1, 2, and
21,
3.
1, 2, and the. Do you want to just read it out with number 3, please, someone?
Sure. Number 3 would be that the new club advertise and appoint the vice president and coaching director.
Righto, all those in favour say aye. Carried unanimously. Thank you, and I'll close the meeting at 9:45 and call on Councillor Nugent.
Yep. Oh, can I just, Mr. Chairman, before you take off, just quickly, look, Australian under-50s championships were held here, and I'd like 2 things. One, to pass on to our staff the great accolades City got for its wickets. In fact, you know, they played down in Bathurst on a couple and they went out to Molong, but they were really talking about Rywena, Wade Park in particular, obviously, out at Bloomfield and Bradman. But what I found astounding about it over those 4 days was the staff that were actually there, involved on the working committee. I'd like a letter to go, whoever it is, to them in Mark Frecklington and the actual staff that roll on the bearing pitches. That's a lot of 18 teams to get on the field, and they did every day. There was no problems. I went right through. Day and night game went really, really well. But the feedback was just, and that Orange, I tell you what, over 50s don't drive old beaten up utes, I can tell you. They don't eat McDonald's. But I do tell you they do like a drink. But I thought this was fantastic. At the presentation the afternoon down at Wade Park, I'd been to a number of the functions and going around and people coming over and genuinely saying, look, it was fantastic. It's been great, hope we can come back here. Right? But I thought this was significant. Victorian side, who won it, come over to me, say, team, and give me $300 for council to give to a charity in Orange. I said, oh, blimey, you don't have to do that. You've already contributed a lot to Orange and so forth. And he said, look, sorry, I've only 300. Well, don't forget there's 11 in the team. Fair bit of money porked out of their own pocket, the winners. Thought that was a great gesture by the team, and that was in gratitude for the time they had here and the pitch played on. So, to our staff, absolutely fantastic, and to everybody involved.
Okay, thanks for that. The meeting of the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee. I'd like to open the meeting. 3 April, with the time being 10:46 and 30 seconds. Does any councillor have any pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? No? Okay. Very good. Moving to item 2.1. Minutes of the Companion Animal Community Committee. There's a recommendation there. Sorry. Who moved? Thanks, Councillor Kidd. Seconded, Councillor Hamling. Thank you very much. Any discussion? If not, then I'll move the motion. All for? Against? Okay, I declare the motion carried. Item 3.1, the City's Power Partnership pledges.
There's a noting only.
Second. Well, that's the recommendation. So thank you, Councillor Whitten, for moving the motion, seconded, I think, by Councillor Taylor. Was that correct?
For noting.
For noting. So the recommendation, just to be clear, that the Council note the 5 Cities Power Partnership pledges recommended by the Environmental Sustainability Community Committee, outlined in the report by the Director of Development Services, and that the resourcing and financial implications and scope for the pledges be assessed and reported to Council. Do I have any discussion on that item?
Okay. I'll just make one comment, and I think it is quite important. That council has been leading in this area. Have a look at the solar panels that we have at our pool.
Full stop.
Have a look at the solar panels we have down on the depot. Look at the energy audits that we've done. Have a look at the workshops that we conducted and were financial put into the toolbox kit that come out for establishing the energy needs and the problems they had in your own house. So I think never lose sight of the fact that some of the positive steps we've put forward. Sometimes these things look as though we haven't done anything, and that is not true at all. And I think it's very, very important when we make recommendations and tell other people what to do, that we're doing it ourselves, and we are doing it ourselves in this council. I'm doing it myself at home because I've got solar and I recycle. I'm not on town water. But it's interesting sometimes a lot of the comments telling people what to do, they don't do any of those things. And they're not getting around in electric cars, they're getting around in an ordinary car. So I think we've got to be very, very careful the way that we educate people and as we move forward. And this council's been very progressive in this area.
It's all good to be warm and fuzzy about all this, but to be really honest with you, the cost to industry is, you talk about, the environment's so important to everyone in the world. We've got to be fair income, and I'll be pushed in a direction whichever way on science and technology and advances in different things, and I'll support whatever can bring a cheaper outcome to the people that need electricity in Australia. Now, once upon a time, electricity was very cheap and easily accessible. Today, you're in small business and you're running many different motors to keep cool rooms cool and everything. And I know the cost that's gone up in my industry alone, from like $1,200 a quarter to $4,500 a quarter. It's unsustainable to expect small business to put up, and households with such a high energy cost. So I'll support whatever you can do for the environment, but the most important thing councils as a whole have to support is our government to try and whatever avenue of electricity generation that's going to be the cheapest, most affordable and the most environmentally sustainable over a long period. So I think, it's all be fair dinkum. We probably do need a new modern coal-fired station to bring costs down. And without argument, export more coal than any other nation in Australia. We should use it until
Fusion, use the right word.
Until the science catches up, better outcomes, and that may be wind power or wave power or whatever else, but be something that I can gain my family, my community, my industry with, please. All I ask.
Okay, thanks for those comments. Also, just reflecting on what Councillor Kidd said, yes, the Orange City Council has been a leader in this area, and I think, and that's been fantastic. I think the City Powers Partnership pledges provides some sort of framework and platform for which we can continue to be a leader in this area and join with other councils who are doing similar work across Australia. We've seen some figures in an earlier meeting in relation to the amount council spends on electricity, which is quite a large amount. So if we can do anything to reduce that expenditure through renewables, I think we should be pursuing them. I also want to commend the Environmental Sustainability Community Committee that worked through the process very quickly, given that we have joined the Cities Power Partnership, and we did have 6 months in which to decide on those pledges. So the Environmental Sustainability Community Committee worked through the process very quickly, but very well, and considered the 32-something pledges that were there and came up with the 5 that have been recommended. So I just want to clarify with Councillor Whitten
So, Mr. Chairman,
what he has actually moved.
Well, I think it's pretty, my language is plain. I'm recommending that the item be noted only. I am not in any way, shape or form supporting any pledge of 5 points, right? I'm saying that when a councillor says he's noting the recommendation, it means it's been noted. No. It means it does not implement it, does not action it, doesn't do anything about it. We've read it. Thank you very much for coming. Noted.
Second with full knowledge of what we're moving.
As a councillor, I'm not in the business of telling with Orange how they should live and how businesses what they should do. Certainly, I respect their wishes and wills on all any beliefs they have about anything in society. But I don't see it as as a councillor, it is our role to take on dictating to businesses and the community what they should do. And some of these points say that, right? So my recommendation stands. It's for noting only.
Fully support, Mr Chairman, the comments of Councillor Whitten. I also support the comments of Councillor Munro and what he said. And renewables have a role, but I tell you what, the most important issue for me is affordability. As far as people complain to me about the prices of electricity, gas, all our energy needs at the moment. I think I said this at Lucknow. I think there is a role for Australia still to have clean burning coal. We've got one of the largest coal deposits in the world. I can't see the hypocrisy, as Councillor Munro pointed out. We're one of the major coal exporters of the world. Where's that coal going? I pointed out before, 180 power stations, coal-powered stations have been 200 odd being built in China at the moment. India, another one. Hundreds of power stations. It all goes into one atmosphere. We all live on the same planet. It's going in the same atmosphere. So why can't we develop clean power, coal power for this planet? Renewables, fine. Solar, wind power, whole lot. Go along with it. But please don't put forward the charges to the lady trying to raise a family, the family that are battling to pay their mortgage, to pay their bills, or the pensioner who can't afford to keep themselves warm in winter. Renewables, wonderful. If you can afford them. If you can afford them. If you can't, what is it? Luck. No, I can't agree to that. Not in one of the richest countries as far as natural resources in the world. The technology there is for free for clean burning coal. We should use that as part of it. And as I said, as Councillor Munro pointed out, let the technology catch up, then let's do it. We're exporting millions and millions of tonnes of gas every year. We've got some of the highest gas prices in the bloody world.
Giving it away.
And our pensioners, like I say, and older people who can't even afford to heat themselves or keep themselves warm in a climate like Orange has in winters. So, I mean, I cannot afford, or I cannot support something like this going out preaching to those people. They can't afford to pay their gas bill in winter. They can't afford to keep themselves warm. Yet we're going out as a council and going to preach to them what they've got to do. No fear, not this little black duck.
I just,
perhaps I'm a little confused, but from what I understand, Councillor Whitten, and your noting means that step 2 or part 2 of the recommendation is ignored. So we do not investigate the resourcing and the financial implications?
Means it's not actioned.
So therefore, does that mean that we don't look at the resourcing and financial implications, that we do nothing in relation largest community committee in terms of volunteers from our community, and we're not going to look at all at the recommendations they've put forward? That actually, I refer to the financial implications on page 10, and it states, Council is not in the position to resolve a position to support the pledges without understanding the financial and resourcing implications. As part 2 of this recommendation is that the research is done and then we as a council determine what we can or can't do. But your noting means don't even look into it. Is that correct?
I just remind all councillors that council has twice made a decision to be part of the City Powers Partnership, under the previous council and has renewed that decision under the current council, and there is a requirement that that councils, as part of that Power Partnership, adopt 5 pledges from the list of.
Noting it. Thank you for
Go tell the
advising
people
us
who
that.
can't keep themselves warm in winter.
So by moving your motion, you're effectively saying that we're taking no action.
I think
on
I'm
these.
saying that thank you for the report. Noted.
Okay. So it's noted.
Clarification, Mr. Chairman. You said there's a requirement. Where's that requirement come from?
I might ask the director.
You said the requirement. So who's that requirement come from?
The
I agree with Councillor Taylor. I mean, like, during the election, you go up around any of those streets up around the other side of the line, and you hear elderly couples sitting there with blankets on them, and they can't even afford the electricity prices.
Just to answer the question, Mr. Chair, about the requirement, the last council resolved to join this City Powers Partnership, as did this council re-endorse that. A requirement of being one of those members of that grouping is to commit to 5 pledges. Okay, and that's where we said now that is a requirement of joining that grouping of councils.
Well, we're just on the head because we have the power to do that.
Well, we're moving that way. It's a decision for the council as a whole. Chairman, I don't know why we're debating this. It's a decision for council to make. There are 11 councillors here.
Yep, put it to the
ones
vote.
that'll get for more votes will be the way the council goes.
I think it's important that we understand what we're voting for. You're effectively
We're moving, and I'm seconding that we note. That's all. Simply end of story.
to put a block to it.
That's not rocket science. We note. That's the end of it.
In terms of energy.
Could I clarify? That means effectively we're removing the second recommendation completely. So we would be voting on only number 1 as written, that council note, 5 Cities Power Partnership, and number 2 is removed. Is that correct?
So, but in terms, Councillor Kidd?
No, you can. Look, can I just say this? One of the things that probably concerns me is the most is how we sell certain things. I think we sold really, really well reducing our potable water consumption in this city. And I brought it up in this chamber once before. We were doing a really, really good job. And next thing we get a hiding by some members of the community, we should be reducing it more. Here we had people, we had the lowest consumption of failure. Then we were screaming out we were going to... Access charges had gone up, prices of using the water had gone up, and we were still trying to screw the hell out of them. Different ways of educating people. And it was pretty obvious because consumptive use, and we had workshops and we had competitions on who could get it down the lowest and all sorts of things. And if you have a look at our consumptive use now, do you ever hear pat on the back for that? You read a good story in the paper about how low our consumptive use of potable water. Right? See the odd story come along, we should be screwing down more. That upsets me because that what does, it works in reverse. After a while, people say, well, geez, and this one you still want to screw me, so bugger it, I'll just go and do what I want to do. Now, we are meeting a lot of these pledges. We're working towards, and I just had a look at them. If you have a look at Power on Council operations, we've done audits. Right? We've got solar panels on lots of our buildings. I wonder how many people have actually done that in their individual homes. We are leading, we're doing it. Hopefully bringing them along with us. Right? If you look at the second one, the public lighting, we're doing that. In fact, with some of the grants, we've got one of the grants in particular looking in the CBD area, that will be something that we're actually looking at. And it makes sense to look at that even in your own home. And if you look at 3, We are looking at designing to maximise public and active transport. We opened an underpass up there, up near James Sheen High School only last week. We've got bicycle paths. Can we have more? Certainly. Part of the design in new suburbs and so forth. But I'll tell you one thing, but you don't see too many of those people riding their bikes in winter. You've got to consider that. It's all right to tell everyone to get out there and on their bike and ride. It's good for active living, it is. I agree with that. But still, look around schools in Orange, not riding school. Build all the pathways you like to that school and see if the kids ride to school. No, we've got to change that. Parents, they'll encourage the kids instead of dropping off at school or catching a bus. Go around, please ring me. I would love to go to school and see a kid ride to school, ride home from school. Somewhere I'd love to go and get a photo or see it happening. That's something that we can still encourage, and we're doing that. We're actually doing that, and we've invested a fair bit of money in it. Have we got a long way to go? Yes, we have. If you look down to at city level renewable energy emissions. Now, this is where I have difficulty just... How can we, when you can't tell me, and I'm on solar, that batteries are efficient and effective enough now? They were, I'd go off grid. But no one will give me the answer to it. I've seen experts on this. I know some people have gone off and the battery life is only here. Big money investment. I can do it. I'm older. My super, well, I'll put the solar power in. But a young couple, have kids, or the elderly couple, my parents up in Frederica Street. Lost my dad last year, my mum's in a nursing home now. But by geez, when I was going to their house and it was freezing cold, and to find out down the track what it was about was the cost of their... Sitting there with blankets around them, not on. Not on as far as I'm concerned. We can have ambitions of where we want to get to, but until such times that renewables, in the form of solar, wind or whatever it may be, is affordable to people, right? And you can access affordable electricity. Don't make them feel like heels because they're using electricity. And that technology ain't there yet. Go that in South Australia. What an absolute catastrophe they had in South Australia with what happened to them. Go down and ask them now, was it a good idea to jump in holus bolus without really seeing how good the technology was and the backups for the technology. Now, I want to move off grid, but I'll tell you what, I'm having trouble this stage convincing my wife, my kids to go off grid. They keep saying to me, what if? You know, and trying to convince your wife won't matter too much if the freezer goes down for a couple of days. Place all the food in it. Or if it went in the middle of July, well, you know, it was -4 in the morning, the temperature got up to 5. So that is an area that does concern me, us telling them, other people, what they should get down to, because we can't do that ourselves as a council at this stage. We know how much energy we need, how much energy we use, and we're working towards it, but we can't, it's pretty hard to set a limit. And the last one there, the education and behavioural change programs, I think we are working on. So most of those pledges I think we're working on and we can work towards. So I'd be quite happy with the pledges, except that one there I don't agree with. But I think we're doing that anyhow.
Thanks Councillor Kidd. Just before I can have a moment. Oh, okay, Councillor McRae.
Well, I'd just like to suggest, Mr Chair, in order to progress this, perhaps we could, or I'd move that we address the recommendation separately, which would enable us to be clear on what we're voting for.
Order, Mr Chairman, I have a motion.
If that's available.
There's a motion being put forward.
You need to put the motion or have an amendment.
You can't just keep tweaking,
you put
Mr
forward
Chairman, and suit yourself.
Motion you put forward is one.
Mr Chair,
well, if you wanted to, look, I'll speak. Excuse me, Mr. Well, want me to teach you how to run the chamber and the rules? If you people want to overrule what I've just done, move an amendment. Don't change the rules. Mr Chairman, do not lobby the councillors from your chair. Do not try and explain to us how we should vote. Be very careful, please.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten.
Mr Chair, I'd like to move an amendment.
Right.
I believe we had the recommendations passed to be addressed together. I'd like to move that we address the two recommendations separately.
Do I have a second for that? Thank you, Councillor Privatera. Okay, so we have an amendment. Any speakers for or against the amendment?
I'll speak for the amendment for the simple reason we're looking at two different issues here. Why the power prices, or gas prices, are out of our control, governed by federal government policy, set them at a comparable world price, high power prices and high gas prices, country. Why we all agree they are high, and some people are struggling to pay those power prices. The second point is only asking us to investigate ways that we can save money as a council on the power charges. I can't see what the problem is with actually both amendments, going with both amendments. Find out what the financial implications are of forward, putting the whole thing forward.
Recommendations.
No reason we can't. Because all we're looking at is just going to report what it will cost us and what the benefits are, or what there is benefits or there is no benefits. So there's absolutely no reason why knocking both on the head for no particular reason.
Thanks, Councillor
Chair, if I
Privatera.
may.
Yes, Councillor Whitten.
I'll speak against the amendment. I'm not sure if everyone's read the points, but it says here, point number 4, set city-level renewable energy or emission reduction targets and sustainable policies to provide a common goal and shared expectations for local residents and businesses. Well, when I was at school, that wasn't council. That's the local residents and businesses. We, as a council, when we approve this, if we approve it, we are going to set renewable energy and emission targets for residents and businesses. So, to clarify the point from Councillor Privatera, it is not just for council, it is for the residents of Orange and the businesses of Orange. We are going to set emissions and energy targets. Well, not me. I am not going to dictate those things to the residents of Orange or to the businesses. Sure, I'm fine with, and Councillor Kidd has already said that we do this as a council already. So why do we need to go down? I've been around this game for a little longer than some of you, right? And when we get reports like this, and when we get some targets in here, you need to read them, because they're going to come home and bite you, and they're going to come home and bite you hard. And it says in here, sure, I'm happy with power, council's power and renewables and public lighting, and we put some rules in development. They're all there. They're done by state government planning. But when you start setting renewable energy and emission reduction targets for the community of Orange and those businesses who are going to come here, and trust me, once we put these targets in place, they ain't going to come here. We're already seeing them leave this country in droves because our state and federal politicians selling us down the road already by bloody selling all of our stuff overseas. It's all right for us to sell it to other countries to build power stations, but our people, our elderly, the people who can't afford to pay for power are going cold. Well, I've had enough of it, and I'm not going to support this type of garbage anymore.
Thanks, Councillor Whitten. Sorry, Councillor Privatera.
To that,
You don't have to respond to me. You're not debating me. You're talking to the chairman.
Well, to that point, Orange City Council hasn't got the power to enforce any.
Why is it in there?
Well, we only a recommendation.
Oh.
I mean, if you've got the power to
Please read it
enforce
again.
there's no enforcement.
Yeah, I'm reading this all wrong.
Yes, just rather than having conversation, can we just have one speaker at a time? Thank you, Councillor Privatera. Any other speakers?
I'd like to
Councillor McRae.
speak to the amendment support that we need to have clarity on what we're voting for, and that's why I think the recommendations need to be addressed separately. I agree that, like every other of our community committees, we are noting what they have come up with under recommendation 1, but under recommendation 2, finding out more from relevant staff to provide a report to council, which has been pretty standard from my experience here, that we find out more about effectively what we're setting as a vision or a target for any aspect of our community before we commit them to that. It does not say that we will set high nor low renewable energy or emissions reduction targets. In fact, we might decide that we're going to maintain them as what they were 10 years ago. The question is whether the resourcing and financial implications should be explored in more detail so we can make an informed decision, and I believe that that is what the second recommendation will allow us to do.
Thanks, Councillor McRae. I'd just like to sort of comment further on that as well, in the sense that this is a recommendation that's been put up by the Environmental Sustainability Community Committee. There are a number of other pledges that council, we as council, can choose to adopt instead of those 5 or instead of one of those 5. So it's, in terms of being, positive and forward-looking, I don't think we should just dismiss them in their entirety. The Councillor Kidd has indicated his support, general support for four of those, and maybe concern about one of them, the city-level targets. Those, as Councillor McRae has said, those city-level targets may be aspirational, may be something that we aspire to, but obviously not compulsory targets. They may be something that we set as an aspirational target. So they're my comments. I think it's probably time.
Can I just say,
yes, Councillor Kidd.
Look, I'll support the amendment because I agree with Councillor Witt and Councillor Taylor that number 1 should be just for noting at this stage. We can have further discussions on this, and I would suggest what I just said to you is 1, 2, 3, 5 we're doing already. Not a hassle. We're doing it. We've been there. We're in.
So what do we got to do it again for?
Yeah, and I don't agree with that one there. I have no difficulties with recommendation 2 that resourcing and financial implications, scope for pledges, and that's all the difference. So just be assessed and reported back to council. I can support the amendment.
And I'd also welcome the engagement of other councillors in the process of looking at the pledges that are there. There are a large number of other ones. In terms of why do we need to do it again, Councillor Taylor's comment, this is setting targets.
Motion be put, Mr. Chairman.
All right, okay. Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Seconded by Councillor McRae. All those in favour of moving the motion?
Aye.
So we've got an amendment, so we're moving the amendment, which is to deal with the 2...
Number 1's for noting.
Deal with the 2 recommendations separately. So all those in favour of the amendment, say aye, or raise your hands, actually. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No? Sorry? No, that's no.
5, we can count to 5.
Those against?
Against.
Okay. All right. So the amendment has been defeated. So those motion is that council note 5 City Powers Partnership pledges recommended by the Environmental Sustainability Community Committee, outlined in the report by the Director of Development Services. All those in favour of the motion say aye.
Put your hands up.
All those in favour of the motion? All those against? So that was unanimous? Okay. All right. So that brings thank you, councillors, and that concludes the Environment and Sustainability Policy Committee. with time being 10:19. And I call on Councillor McRae to conduct the Finance Policy Committee.
I would now like to open the Finance Policy Committee meeting of 3rd of April with the time being 10:19 p.m. Does any councillor have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? None. We have item 2.1, the Audit and Risk Management Committee meeting. So, sorry, who moved that? I was too slow looking up. So, Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Munro. Is there any discussion regarding this item? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. That concludes. Oh, we have a matter arising. Yes, Councillor Whitten.
Person. I'd like to put a motion up that we look at. I believe that the Orange Historical Society are trying to raise funds to a device that would allow them to digitise all of their photographs of the history of Orange. I'm not aware, and as it's already been brought forward. But if it hasn't, I would like to move a motion that we consider in this budget. I believe it's $20,000. I'll find out for sure, but that was a figure given to me for this device that would allow them to a lot of conversions simultaneously and cut away a lot of the time.
Just a matter of procedure, that would have to come up as a motion for the next meeting. Bit of detail.
I would question whether we have a museum committee that would come to us under.
Oh, we don't need to go to the committee because we're the council.
Yeah, we're the council.
The process that can't be dealt with tonight, it'll have to be a motion for next council meeting. Yeah. Yeah.
So again, thank you, Councillor Whitten. The Historical Society, in terms of the museum committee and their digitising of the collection and providing some equipment for them, is that pretty much what the
Historical Society? Yeah, I don't believe it's got anything to do with the. Just brought to me by one of the members of the raising 20,000, trying to get funds, and I said I would bring it to council. As a motion.
That'll be a motion.
That was part of the budget.
That'll be a motion that comes in from Councillor Whitten for the next council meeting.
Thank you. I think that, like our Christmas decorations a number of weeks ago, that would be appropriate to come to the considerations when we're doing our budget. Are you happy with that, Councillor Whitten?
Certainly, Madam Chairman. And may I ask for you to the General Manager how they approach council?
A bit familiar with it. We'd have to double check the specific.
Okay, thank you very much.
I might suggest that I know that we do from time to time have these items that come up as requests for funds for specific incidents. Perhaps we might make an effort, as all of us as councillors and the various people who come to us, and with our live streaming, perhaps we could promote for all members of the community to get their info in for their requests for the budget in an appropriate time frame to ensure that all of those are considered. Are there any further requests, motions regarding funds for particular groups or committees? So at that point, I'll thank you, councillors, and that concludes the Finance Policy Committee with the time being 10:23. I'll invite Councillor Duffy, Chair.
Move this one quick, or we'll be part of this.
Thank you, councillors, and I'll declare the Services Policy Committee open at 23. And item 1.1 on the agenda is declarations of pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interests, and less than significant non-pecuniary interests. Seeing there's none, we move on now to 2.1, which is the Age and Access Committee with its recommendations been moved and determinations been moved by Councillor Nugent, seconded by Councillor Munro. No discussion. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Move on to 2.2, minutes of the Conservatorium and Planetarium Committee. It's been moved and seconded by Councillor McRae. Councillor Turner.
Just a correction, Mr. Chairman. The attendance, I was not in attendance at that meeting. So.
Any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put that to recommendations. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. 2.3, minutes of the Community Safety and Crime Prevention Committee held in February. Recommendation there on page 23. Being moved, Councillor McRae, seconded by Councillor Munro. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just an interesting one, and I don't know if it was today's paper or the day before. Comment from the police to say that there was lots of cars broken into. They tried to pinch me in Coronation Drives, and guess what the solution was?
Put a Manly jumper in.
Make sure you lock your car. Or he said they broke into locked cars.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that. No further discussion. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Item number 2.4, minutes of the NAIDOC Community Committee held on the 1st of March. The recommendation on page 30.
Move the motion.
Move, Councillor Munro, seconded Councillor Nugent. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put that recommendation. In favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. This is a matter arising, I believe, just work commitments of you not a member for NAIDOC. Is that correct? Did we get someone to take a council representation for that?
Who's the chair?
It was Councillor. Yeah, Councillor Romano's withdrawn because of commitments. And have we got anyone to take that? Bear that in mind, councillors, we might need someone there.
It's in your
2.5, which is the minutes of the Clifton Grove Community Committee on page 55 on the 8th of March.
That's the recommendation.
Been moved by Councillor Munro, seconded by Councillor McRae. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. 2.6, minutes of the Lucknow Community Committee. Moved by Councillor Hamley. Seconded by Councillor Munro. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Councillor Nugent and then Councillor Miletto.
Sorry, it might be the same thing, but I'm just noting in the attendance that Gander's not mentioned, but he managed to move a number of motions during the meeting, so oversight just in terms of his attendance at the meeting.
It's pretty tricky.
Councillor Miletto.
Like to speak, and I'm not sure whether it's appropriate time regarding 3.4 regarding the recommendation that council consider an annual allocation of capital works for the villages of Lucknow, Spring Hill and Clifton Grove. An appropriate time to speak to.
I don't have any problem with making a suggestion that goes in the budget for a budget referral. General Manager, comment?
Can I answer that for you? Yeah, look, I think it's in there, and I think when we go into our budgeting cycle, there's lots of discussions over that staff will be taking that on board.
Might be a more appropriate time, I wasn't sure.
And that'll probably be a time to see what comes back as drafts, and if it's not in there, yell and scream. And
thank you.
There'll be a lot of yell and screaming about what should be where and how much money, but I think that's the process.
Okay, councillors, and no further discussion. The recommendation, all those in favour say aye. Against, carried. 2.7, minutes of the Orange Health Liaison Committee on the 19th of March. There's a recommendation on page 71. Moved by Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Any further matters? No matters further. We'll declare the Policy Service Committee closed at 10:28, and I call upon the Mayor, Councillor Reg Kidd, to continue the meeting.
Item 4, notices of motion. We have 4.1, investigation of an archery site Motion is by Councillor Romano. Councillor Privatera. Councillor Romano.
We, Councillors Stan Romano and Mario Privatera, wish to move the following notice of motion. Meeting the 3rd of April. The Council investigate a suitable site for Olympic target archery for both outdoor and indoor opportunities. Now, the background is self-explanatory. The President of the Orange Bow Hunters has had a meeting here with the General Manager and myself, and there are a lot of hindrances to what they've got at the moment down at Lewis Ponds, and particularly the weather. There's been a lot of opportunities lost where they wanted to have events in Orange, and they've had to call it off because of the weather, and people are uncomfortable, cold and the wind. So, yeah, you can have a read yourselves, councillors. I think it's a good activity for young people as well to get involved with, not just about one group. They've got about 50 members at the moment, and they used to have 150 members. They did get an indoor facility. The membership will definitely grow. Now, I've also mentioned in here that I think it's right at the bottom, the last sentence, or close to it, the showground. It's got the pavilion there. I'm just wondering whether it's a suitable location used as well as the people that are using it at the moment. So, yeah, I hope I get the councillors' support on it. I think it's another activity for the community. I think it'll go well.
Can I just ask you a couple of questions? No, just roughly. Come back and report. What's the distance you need? And I suppose a flyover. I don't know.
Yeah, no, good question. That was discussed at our meeting with the general manager, and they require for the furthest target 80 metres.
Yep. And
I believe the showground pavilion's 83.
Yep.
And he said that'd be fine. But my only concern with the showground, it's just metal. It's just tin. It's like Colorbond shed, except it's silver. So it would require some form of padding. Now, whether
on the walls,
it's set up like bird netting for the orchards, where it can easily, you do the job once, but then you just wind it up electrically or manually. But it would need some form of protection, because the guy mowing the lawn in the next paddock will get killed. I'm not saying he will, but that's what could happen.
I'll shoot him on.
The tin's only a weather thing. So yeah, a good question. It's 80 metres is what they require.
Look, the reason I asked that, that was the first thing that came to my head. I'd love to see that pavilion out at the showground be, what do you call it, multi-use. Not just once a year when the show's on. I think it's a great size pavilion. That'd be great. And I suppose that'd be negotiations on, like shows on certain things they wouldn't be able to use it.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to bring another point up that was raised. It was yesterday. A colleague of mine was contacted by the manager of the indoor tennis facility, and he said that he would do anything he could to help. Now, whether that's another option, I don't know how big it is, but that has got concrete walls. I mean, I know it's tilt up. So there are people out there that are willing to get involved in any way they can.
Right, and now we've got Councillor Amming first, then Councillor Leto. He beat you to it. He beat you by a second.
Just a question. So they use special arrowheads, not proper arrowheads in the shed.
Armour piercing.
They use armour piercing, blue tipped. Well, they're target arrows. They need to be pointy. My young bloke, when I was living on a couple of acres, he got into that for a while, and I went and got him some hay bales in the paddock. His friends used to come over, and the only thing I didn't like about it was you had to go and retrieve the arrows, and that sort of takes it out of you. But no, they're pointy. They're actually, it's dangerous. I'm not having a crack at it, but it's got to be supervised. It's got to be done properly.
Councillor Leto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my question when I look at this motion is a sporting club. They're asking the council to go out and investigate a suitable site for Olympic target archery for both outdoor and indoor. I'm just wondering whether there's an opportunity for this club to come along and speak to the council, because what they're asking is fairly significant, council resources and finances. I'm aware from my involvement through Orange Football that there are a number of regional grant opportunities out there. There was funding for this type of thing, and I don't see anything in here about any preliminary inquiries being made to source any type of regional grant opportunities or funding. I'm just wondering if we can have a bit more information for the people who want council to go and these things. I mean, I'd like to see some groundwork done first before they come to council. I'm not sure whether that's been done or not, but I would think that as a first step, those type of things should be undertaken. Maybe Councillor Romano can enlighten me.
Yeah, Councillor Bluto, if you read it, it says to investigate a suitable site, and that'd be step one, and then we'll get into the funding side of it, which you know, I'm hoping that we'd be seeking government funding on it. But you know, I sometimes take offence to your questions. You're making a mountain out of an anthill. I mean, I've asked here for councillors to look at it. If they approve it, then you go through the relevant courses. So that's about all I can tell you at the moment.
Thank you, and I'm sorry if you're offended by my question, but I guess when we're talking about ratepayers' money, we need to be vigilant about the way we spend it. And I think my question, anything wrong with it, to be honest, but I'm sorry if you're offended.
Look, I think what the motion is, whether the wording's spot on or not doesn't really matter. I think the intent is council to look at it. Is there a suitable site? Well, if there is, how much would it then cost to establish one? Because I don't know if a clue in the world, and we've got staff with those skills. And then what would come from that is, as you do know, there's a number of grants out there, particularly state grants, particularly in the area of sports and so forth. And then, and at that stage, it'll be coming back to council for agreeing to it or not agreeing to it. Then it'll be putting it in line to putting it for government grants.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad the blinkers have been moved. I want to support Councillor Romano and Councillor Preparatory on this. I think it's a great opportunity for us to have a look at another sport to bring to our community that'll bring up the same way as what the cricket did in the weekend to fill up our motels and all those sort of things. But there are a group of learned councillors, and I know of one going to Canberra in June, and I did notice it to say that the President has mentioned the fact that there's a facility in Canberra. So I think that the staff might be able to organise a visit for that when we are in Canberra in June. So I think that could be a bit of a learning curve for all of us as regards to that, and get some indication of what the cost involved in that.
Canberra to Orange, mate. Jobs to
support you.
Yeah. Councillor Munro, sorry. I'll go.
Ladies first, go on.
Councillor Gray, that's very gentlemanly of you.
Munro, look, my question is whether this sets a precedent for any club to approach any councillor and request that we assess a opportunity for a new site. And I'll use the example perhaps of a swimming club, say of 100 members, like a pool, an indoor pool to be built within Orange, and whether if it came to council, we would be therefore required to put resources in to ensure that, or seek funding for the establishment of any other facility, and be it ultimate frisbee, be it swimming, be it archery. I guess my question is it the role of the club to do the legwork and present something to us, or is it the role of the council to do the legwork to find an appropriate site and investigate funding?
Well, I can answer that by saying, councillors, as a councillor, you can bring any request you may wish to the council, whether it's on behalf of an individual ratepayer or a club or a group. In answer to your question, because you used the example of the swim club, that's exactly what happened. It was a group that called themselves Swim Fit that went to a couple of councillors, and the councillors put that up as a motion, and the council supported it, and that was the beginning of many, many years of raising money and all sorts of stuff for SwimFit. I remember back into the approach way back before anyone on this council for the gun club. A Pigeon Club, and their move to another site and getting it at a living standard. I don't think this is unusual in any way, and I think it's, look at the word, it's investigate at this stage.
Probably, Mr Mayor, just to go upon yours,
Councillor Munro, you're right.
Suggest any club. You could suggest, what about the racing club?
Yep.
What about the harness club? What about the go-kart club? What about the soccer clubs? What about every single club in the stage has asked for some sort of assistance, or we've got facilities in place because the initiative has been taken by people to request that council look at the issue. So, no restriction, and we are the ultimate decision maker. So it's up to the council to determine whether we'll support a project or not. So you can bring anything up, there's no restriction. Just whether you can cover 11 councillors in the room that it's a good idea or not.
Thanks, Councillor.
These democracy councillors, and I think this is a good motion. I'll support the motion. I think all sports, and I you know, when this goes along a little bit further and we find out a little bit more information or learn it about the sport and how maybe it could come to fruition, there could be add-ons to it. There could be, we could incorporate it with we just lost rifle range. Could be other opportunities along with it
anything.
To bring target shooters of all types with rifles, whatever, to our city if we had the right facility. And we're talking about an Olympic grade facility. Well, you know, we mightn't quite get there. We may. That's our in the intention of the motion. It'd be wonderful if we could have an Olympic grade anything in Orange to bring people to practice that are. We've got an Olympic pool, but was that short or something? Anyway, I move that I support the motion. I think it's in good heart, and let's endorse it.
Motion be put. Seconder, all in favour? Aye. Thank you. I'm putting the motion now. Motion is on that page there. Okay, all in favour? Aye, against? Thank you. 4.2 is the notice of motion, the ALGA New South Wales Conference 2018 by Councillor McRae.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second, Councillor Duffy. Speakers for or against? Thank you very much for the report, and I hope you got a lot out of it. And all in favour?
Can I just, ask a question? I just wanted to say thank you for the report as well. The follow-up for Orange opportunities. Just wondering what process we might go down, or like that. There's suggestions, but is there a process that we can put in place to follow up on those opportunities, or what would be the appropriate process?
Yeah.
So staff will give that consideration in area, particularly the hosting a future ALGA. A councillor could use a motion that we pursue that, but I'd suggest that take something like that on notice and provide some feedback on what we might do.
Okay, thank you.
That was a question. Okay, there's no general reports. We move over to...
Going to close, Mr. Chairman.
I'll ask a question before we go into close. Just a short question.
Very short. That's enough.
A few council meetings ago, I asked for a letter to be sent to the state member and the federal member to address council on issues of funding and what they think they could do for us as a city. Haven't had any reply for that. Is that happened? Has there been those letters have been sent?
If they haven't been actioned, we'll have a look at it tomorrow, and I'll sign off on one tomorrow and get them in the mail to you.
Please, I'd like that to happen because, you know, many times you ask for things to happen and mine.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, the general
From closed committee to council was that council award the contract for the installation of traffic.
I voted against the motion, sorry. I was voting against going into closed. I vote for the motion.
He had his
Sit down.
environmental victory, so he's gone to his head.
Hands
Of what?
on the traffic lights? Yeah, it's unanimous. Except that, did you change your mind?
Yeah, we're voting for the motion. I thought we were going into close.
Right. All in favour? Yeah, thank you.
Item 6.1, tenders for traffic signals on the Forest Road upgrade. The resolution from closed committee was the council award the contract for the installation of traffic signals for the Forest Road upgrade, Curran and Curran Proprietary Limited, $192,445. 2 was that permission be granted to affix the council seal to all documents. If you'll need a motion to confirm in open what was.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. All in
Look,
favour?
getting those fancy ones, Mr Mayor, that have
Right.
the timers on them. It tells you how long you got till it goes in Melbourne.
Oh, the ones that make the funny noise.
Tell you that they go start at 10. 9,
Okay,
8,
thank you
7.
very much, councillors. Close the meeting at 10:45. It was a lengthy meeting tonight, but as you can see, there's 2 council folders, a lot of material to get through and some more important things. And it was important that we had that extraordinary meeting, or we wouldn't have got through tonight. So thank you all.